My name is Rachel, a 30-year-old employed at a foreign investment firm. I tied the knot with Kevin, my husband, 2 years ago. He serves as a civil servant, though his employment is on a yearly contract basis, causing him annual apprehension over contract renewals. Kevin's family staunchly champions the merits of public service. With retired county workers as parents and a sister currently employed in the city office, their allegiance to public service is unwavering. Consequently, there's a noticeable air of disdain towards my private sector occupation. Living under the same roof since our marriage, they seize every opportunity to diminish the significance of my profession. Isn't it embarrassing to work for a foreign company as an American, especially in finance? Isn't that just about chasing profits? People in private sectors are perceived as those who couldn't secure public service roles, and those in foreign companies are seen as settling because they couldn't land a domestic job. It's a pity, they often remark. It appears that my husband, who was raised in such an environment, also holds public service in high esteem, despite the instability of his position and its modest salary. He remains steadfast in his attachment to this precarious job. Once, during his annual bout of anxiety around fiscal year-end, I ventured to ask Kevin, "Wouldn't you feel more secure with a stable full-time position in a regular company rather than remaining a part-time employee in public service?" His response was resolute. "I'd rather face unemployment than venture into the private sector." Kevin hasn't disclosed his part-time status to his parents, insisting that I maintain the secret as well. Despite lacking a substantial role, he fabricates tales of promotions to uphold his pride. I don't believe he needs to fabricate such stories, but it seems he's striving to earn respect in the eyes of his parents and younger sister by portraying a certain status. Despite never showing me his payslip, the amount deposited into our account suggests his salary is rather modest. With Kevin's recent promotion to section chief, one would expect a significant salary increase, right? How much is he earning now? Caught off guard, Kevin accidentally divulged my salary. However, instead of the anticipated reaction, his father seemed taken aback, questioning, "Is that the standard income nowadays?" While I'm uncertain of the exact salary of a public sector chief, I do know that as a bond trader, my earnings are considerably higher. A notable portion of my earnings comes from commissions. Lately, my performance has been consistently strong, resulting in a salary far surpassing the norm. Upon learning the figures, my husband remarked, while his mother nodded in agreement, "Times have changed, but it's clear Kevin is highly regarded." She seemed visibly pleased. Kevin's sister, employed at the city office, joined the conversation, asserting, "You see, working at the county office guarantees higher earnings for my brother. He might even hold a department head position if he were in the city office." Kevin's discomfort was palpable after inadvertently revealing my salary. Realizing his mistake, he quickly tried to steer the conversation in a different direction. "Oh, by the way, I saw someone from the housing manufacturer around here the other day. Are we planning to remodel the house?" he asked. Indeed, a salesperson from a housing company had recently visited to assist us. Seizing the opportunity to divert the conversation, I suggested, "If we are considering a renovation, I'd recommend focusing on the kitchen." Before I could finish, my mother-in-law cut me off sharply. "No, as the daughter-in-law, you have no place in family discussions. Just keep quiet and follow instructions." It seemed my intimidating mother-in-law disliked everything I did or said, primarily because I wasn't a civil servant. She also resented that I received all of Kevin's salary and gave him an allowance. Believing Kevin's claim that he earned a substantial income, she was convinced I was managing his finances. In reality, Kevin's modest salary mostly funded his personal expenses, while I covered nearly all the household costs. My sister-in-law didn't contribute to the living expenses at all. "Why would you take living expenses from us when we're living on a pension? Kevin is making so much, you don't need it," they would say, refusing to help. They didn't have to pay rent, and I could manage with my salary alone. But it felt unfair. Despite shouldering most of the financial burden, I wasn't allowed to participate in the home renovation discussion this time. So, I retreated to the kitchen to clean up after dinner, promising myself that next time would be different. Neither my mother-in-law nor my sister-in-law helps with the housework, so I hurry home after work to cook, clean, and do laundry. In this respect, working for a foreign-owned company has its advantages. As long as I perform well, there's no need for overtime, allowing me to always leave on time and keep my work and private life separate. Kevin, on the other hand, often brings his work home and spends his days off on his computer. I worry about the security of bringing work data home. When I asked him about it, he snapped, "I can't help it. I get yelled at if I work overtime and even more if I don't finish on time. It's not your concern, so don't butt in." His response was harsh, and he has been particularly grumpy lately, snapping at me whenever I try to talk to him. He even yelled at me when I brought up the housing issue he had been discussing with his parents. Just like Mom always said, it's none of your business, you just need to follow what's been decided. I was growing increasingly frustrated with Kevin's attitude. He never shared anything with me despite my bearing the burden of living expenses and housework. One day, a representative from the construction company came to my in-laws' house with a computer, discussing the layout and other aspects of the house with everyone except me. When I brought them tea and tried to sneak a peek, they immediately yelled, "You don't need to look, just go away." From my brief glance, I was surprised to see what appeared to be the floor plan of a new house, not a renovation of my in-laws' home. For some time, my father-in-law had mentioned that their house was getting cramped and that he wanted to rebuild it, but I hadn't thought he was serious. It seems my in-laws, both retired civil servants, received generous retirement allowances and are planning to build and live in a new house with that money. In addition to their retirement allowances, they haven't spent much of their pension either. Since marrying into the family, I assumed they had ample funds, so I tried to stay out of their financial decisions. However, one thing did bother me. Would Kevin's sister still be living with us in the new home? At 28, it might be time for her to get married, but there hasn't been any discussion about that. It seems highly likely she will continue living with us even after the move. This wouldn't be a problem if she helped with the housework, but she tends to dump all the chores on me and then complains about it, saying, "It's too troublesome." I wish my sister-in-law would get married soon, but recently I overheard my father-in-law discussing plans with the home builder. Can we add extra rooms so that when our daughter finds a husband, they can also live here? Ideally, we'd like a house where my wife and I, our son, our daughter, and her future husband can all live together, he said. I was shocked to hear this, especially since it seemed they were planning for my sister-in-law to live with us even after she marries. I can only imagine how large a house for 3 families would need to be, and it probably wouldn't fit on their current property. Considering that the new house would be built with my in-laws' retirement fund and my sister-in-law's earnings, I have no right to complain. Still, I can't help but think about how much of a hassle it will be to clean such a large house. Then, my husband and his family decided to visit the showcase room and construction site, telling me to stay home because it's none of your business. My mother-in-law shouted at me with a nasty grin, clearly expecting a retort. She looked annoyed when I remained quiet. The construction of the new home proceeded without any information being shared with me, and my in-laws and sister-in-law started preparing to move out. My husband didn't seem to be preparing anything, so I asked, "Don't you need to be getting ready to move?" "Why would I do it? That's your job," my husband snapped back at me. I was taken aback since he hadn't even told me when and where we were moving. From then on, I started preparing for the move whenever I had time, but I made sure to separate my husband's things from mine. The whole new home move-out incident had completely shattered my trust in my husband, and I could no longer bear my mother-in-law's terrible attitude. Even when I asked my husband about our new address, he simply replied, "You don't need to know. Just be prepared." From snippets of conversation during meals, I gathered that the move was imminent, but it was strange that they kept me, the wife, completely in the dark. Perhaps they thought of me as nothing more than a maid. One day, the moving service arrived, and that was when I finally learned we were moving. As I hurriedly cleaned up the breakfast dishes, my mother-in-law remarked, "We're buying new ones, so you can leave those. And are you planning to move into our new home with us?" In that moment, it became clear. They hadn't told me about their new home or the moving date because they intended to kick me out. As I saw my husband standing silently behind my mother-in-law, a smirk playing on his lips, I couldn't help but wonder if he shared her intentions. Well, I had anticipated something like this, so I had already packed my belongings separately, without a trace of agitation. I met her gaze squarely. "I despise everything about you. From now on, we're going to live as a family without you. Do whatever you want." My mother-in-law shouted at me, her tone filled with disdain. My sister-in-law watched with indifference, perhaps expecting me to break down and beg to stay. My mother-in-law's displeasure deepened at my lack of reaction. "You're a parasite, leeching off Kevin's paycheck since the day you got married. Get out now. We need Kevin's salary to pay off the mortgage on our new home, she spat out, her words sharp with resentment. Parasites like you are a nuisance, she seethed, her anger palpable as her face flushed red. While I had already planned on leaving, the revelation about my husband's salary being used for repayment almost made me burst out laughing. My husband appeared shocked, unaware of this arrangement. He gazed at his mother, then downcast, unable to speak the truth. His reaction revealed that my in-laws intended to rely solely on Kevin, whom they perceived as a high earner, to handle the mortgage repayments without tapping into their retirement funds. The prospect of how they would manage the mortgage repayments intrigued me. With a smile, I responded, "Understood. I will divorce Kevin, and you can all move to your new place by yourselves," I declared calmly. My mother-in-law, clearly displeased with my composed demeanor, appeared as though she wanted to say more, but she was ushered out of the house by my father-in-law and sister-in-law. Turning to Kevin, who remained behind, I said, "I'll bring the divorce papers, so give me the address of your new place. I have no idea what your magnificent new home looks like, so I would like to see it once." Reluctantly, he provided me with the address. With little luggage remaining, I cheerfully arranged for a friend to help me move out using her car. I made sure to switch all the bills to be under Kevin's name rather than mine, utilities and everything included. Returning to my parents' house for the time being, I decided to head to the address Kevin had given me to have him sign the divorce papers. Their new house was strikingly large, designed to accommodate 3 generations, with its grand architecture looming impressively. Upon spotting me, my mother-in-law hurried over, shouting, "What are you doing here, you parasitic wife?" Ignoring her tirade, I calmly asked Kevin to sign the divorce papers. Reluctantly, he complied, while his mother continued her verbal assault. "I knew it. A non-civil servant wife is useless. Hurry up and sign, and send her away," she insisted. I couldn't resist a retort. Such a splendid new house. The payments must be quite the burden, aren't they? Can Kevin's salary cover it? I remarked snidely, watching as she read the papers, her anger palpable. "I don't need your concern. Take the divorce papers and leave immediately," she snapped once again. I lingered for a moment, observing my ex-husband's pale expression, but with his mother on the brink of eruption, I swiftly retrieved the divorce papers and filed them at City Hall before embarking on my search for a new home. After all that transpired, the thought of marriage lost its allure, so I opted for a cozy studio apartment to relish living independently. There was a charming spot conveniently close to my workplace, so I wasted no time in making the move. In my new abode, devoid of anyone foisting chores upon me or boasting about civil service, life took on a tranquil hue. Just as I was settling into this newfound peace, an unknown number lit up my phone screen. "Rachel, can you come back to me? I can't keep up with the mortgage payments, let alone the utilities. My phone lines have been cut off, and I'm borrowing my friend's phone to call you." It was none other than my ex-husband, Kevin. Through tears, he pleaded for help, but I couldn't help but feel exasperated. Instead of turning to me, he should have sought assistance from his parents or his sister. So I responded acidly, "Why not ask your sister, who's employed in public service, for support? And what about your parents? Surely they have their retirement savings and Social Security." Kevin's discomfort was evident as he confessed, "Actually, my parents have depleted their retirement savings, and my sister is grappling with her own financial troubles." It turned out that Kevin's parents had fallen prey to an investment scam, losing a significant portion of their retirement funds. Meanwhile, Kevin's sister, under the impression that she didn't need to aid her parents financially, had been recklessly accumulating debt through excessive spending on credit. Upon learning of my occupation in investments, my mother-in-law's demeanor turned openly hostile. Now I wonder if her animosity stemmed from being swindled in an investment scam. Furthermore, it seems they were keen on upholding their social standing through ostentatious purchases, perhaps to preserve their pride in their public service careers. However, despite their efforts, Kevin's parents found themselves burdened with debt, relying on their Social Security checks to meet their obligations. I was taken aback to discover that Kevin's sister, despite her youth, had amassed significant debt by indulging in purchases of branded goods on credit. The situation took a further downturn when Kevin revealed, "Actually, I've been let go. I'm unemployed now." He had lost his job this year after being caught working remotely with data he had taken from the office. He should have heeded my warning, but it's hardly surprising, considering he was taking confidential data out of the office. Even before Kevin lost his job, his family was already grappling with financial difficulties, reliant on my income. Kevin never disclosed to his parents that he was only a part-timer. Likewise, his parents concealed the loss of their retirement funds due to a scam, and even his younger sister kept her substantial debt hidden. In their public service-oriented family, filled with pride, everyone harbored deep secrets that somehow remained hidden as long as I was around. However, after they moved to their new home and I departed, their financial struggles came to light. As a last resort, Kevin reached out to me, seeking assistance. However, I had no desire to reconcile with him, so I firmly declined and ended the call. Despite my refusal, he persisted with repeated calls but eventually ceased after I continued to ignore him. Sometime later, as I passed by their new house, I noticed a for sale sign. Upon speaking with a home builder present at the site, I learned that they were struggling to meet their mortgage payments and had to sell the property quickly. However, they still had outstanding debts. It was ironic considering how they had previously boasted about their financial stability. Yet, when faced with financial difficulties, they swiftly sold their home, placing a burden on a relative who had co-signed the loan. According to the builder, this relative worked in the private sector, exacerbating the family's embarrassment as they were now ostracized by their relatives. Their previous claims of being public servants no longer held weight, and they were looked down upon by their community. Sitting comfortably at home, I couldn't help but smirk at the thought of how the once proud family, now isolated by their relatives and unable to flaunt their public service jobs, were faring.
I stared at the receipt on our kitchen counter, my hand trembling as I picked it up. Tiffany & Co., a diamond necklace worth more than our monthly mortgage payment. The thing was, I hadn't received any jewelry from my husband lately. My name is Sienna, and until tonight, I thought I had my life perfectly mapped out. I'm a mortgage broker, the kind of person who helps others secure their dream homes while making sure their finances don't turn into nightmares. The irony of what was about to happen wasn't lost on me. "Chloe, honey, dinner's ready." I called upstairs to my daughter, trying to keep my voice steady. The lasagna I'd made was getting cold, but that receipt burned hot in my pocket. The front door opened, and Terrence walked in, loosening his tie. 16 years of marriage had taught me his routines, but lately, something had been off. The late nights at the office, the mysterious phone calls, the password changes on his phone. "Smells good in here," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Found something interesting today while doing laundry," I said, pulling out the receipt. "Care to explain?" His face changed. Not surprise, not guilt, just relief. "I was going to tell you tonight anyway." "Tell me what?" My voice cracked despite my best efforts. "Her name is Serena." He said it so casually, like he was discussing the weather. "She's been working in accounting for about a year now." The room started spinning. "You bought her a necklace?" "Sienna, let's be adults about this. We both know things haven't been great." "Adults?" I laughed, the sound harsh and foreign. Adults don't sneak around behind their families' backs. Footsteps on the stairs made us both turn. Chloe stood there, her phone in hand, confusion written across her face. "Mom? Dad? What's going on?" "Nothing, sweetie," I started, but Terrence cut me off. "Actually, Chloe, your mother and I need to talk to you. There are going to be some changes." I grabbed his arm. "Don't you dare." "I've sold the house," he announced. The words hit like a physical blow. "You what?" "The papers were signed this morning. We have a week to move out." Chloe's phone clattered to the floor. "But my school, my friends." "The buyer made an excellent offer," Terrence continued, as if he were discussing a business transaction. "It's better this way. Clean break." "Clean break?" I stepped toward him, fury replacing shock. "This is our home, Chloe's home. You had no right." "I had every right. My name's on the deed too, remember? You're the mortgage broker. You should know how these things work." Chloe ran back upstairs, her sobs echoing through the house. I wanted to go after her, but I couldn't move. "Where are we supposed to go?" I demanded. "You'll figure something out. You're good at planning, aren't you?" He grabbed his briefcase. "I'll be staying at Serena's. We can sort out the details through our lawyers." "Lawyers? You've already filed for divorce?" "Yes." He headed for the door, then paused. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Sienna. It's better for everyone this way." The door closed behind him with a quiet click. I stood there, staring at the lasagna getting cold on the table, set for 3 people who would never eat together again. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother, Yusef. "Hey sis, you okay? Chloe just called me crying." I couldn't reply, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Another buzz. This time from my bank app. A notification about a large transfer from our joint account. My hands shook as I logged in, only to find the account nearly empty. Upstairs, I could hear Chloe crying. My daughter, who had dreams of attending an elite university next year. My daughter, whose college fund was in that joint account. My daughter, whose entire world had just been upended by her father's selfishness. Something snapped inside me. The shock gave way to a cold, clear anger. Terrence thought he had it all figured out. His young girlfriend, his clean break, his fresh start. He thought I would just roll over and accept it. He was wrong. I climbed the stairs to Chloe's room, knocking softly before entering. She lay curled up on her bed, clutching her childhood teddy bear. "Mom?" Her voice was small, scared. "What are we going to do?" I sat beside her, stroking her hair. "We're going to fight back," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "Your father thinks he's won, but he has no idea who he's dealing with. But the house is just a building." I pulled her close. "Home is wherever we make it, honey. And I promise you, we're going to make something better than this." I didn't know how yet, but I knew one thing for certain. Terrence Riley was about to learn that hell hath no fury like a woman with nothing left to lose. "Mom, what are you looking for?" Chloe asked, watching me tear through another box in our attic. 3 days had passed since Terrence's bombshell, and we were supposed to be packing, not creating more mess. "Your grandmother's papers," I muttered, pushing aside old photo albums. She always said she had something important to tell me, but then she got sick so suddenly. "Dad's lawyer called again," Chloe said quietly. "He wants us to sign something about the house." I wiped sweat from my forehead, leaving a streak of dust. "Well, he can wait. I'm not signing anything until—" My hand struck something solid. "Hello, what's this?" Behind a stack of Christmas decorations sat a metal lockbox I'd never seen before. It had my grandmother Mia's name engraved on top. "Can you open it?" Chloe knelt beside me, suddenly interested. "If I can remember..." I tried a few combinations. Her birthday, mine, the year she bought her house. Nothing worked. Then I tried the date she always celebrated as her Freedom Day, though she never told me why. The lock clicked. Inside, beneath a stack of yellowed papers, lay a letter addressed to me in my grandmother's elegant handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. "Dear Sienna, if you're reading this, I'm no longer here to tell you this story in person. Remember the land I used to take you to when you were little? The one with the old oak tree where we'd have picnics? That land is yours now, has been since the day you were born. Your grandfather tried to take everything from me when he left, just like he took my dignity. But I was smarter than he knew. I bought that land in secret, using money I'd saved from my cleaning jobs. It was my insurance policy, my way of making sure no man could ever leave me with nothing again. Now it's your insurance policy. The deed is in this box, along with all the paperwork. The land has been paid off for decades. Use it wisely, my dear girl. Sometimes the best revenge is simply proving them wrong. Love, Grandma Mia." "Mom?" Chloe touched my arm. "You're crying." I wiped my eyes and pulled out the deed with trembling hands. 30 acres of land, just outside the city limits. Land that, according to recent development plans I'd seen at work, was now in a prime location. My phone rang. Yusef. "Sis, I've been doing some digging," he said when I answered. "You're not going to believe this, but Terrence is in trouble. Big trouble." "What kind of trouble?" "The kind that involves gambling debts and borrowed money. That's why he sold the house so fast. He needed quick cash." I sat back against a box, my mind racing. The joint account. Probably gone for the same reason. "Listen, I know a guy in the DA's office. If you want to press charges..." "No," I said, looking at the deed in my hand. "I have a better idea." After hanging up, I made another call, one I never thought I'd make. "Nora Benson's office." A crisp voice answered. "Nora, it's Sienna. I know we've had our differences, but I need your help." Silence on the other end. Nora and I had been rivals for years, competing for the same clients in the real estate market. She was sharp, ruthless, and exactly what I needed right now. This about Terrence? She asked. Word travels fast in this business. Actually, it's about 30 acres of prime development land. Another pause. You have my attention. I'll make you a deal. Help me develop this land, and I'll give you exclusive listing rights on every property we build. Meet me at Carlo's in an hour, she said. Bring the paperwork. I hung up and looked at Chloe, who had been listening intently. What are you planning? She asked. Remember how Dad always said women don't understand real estate? That we should leave the big decisions to him? I stood up, clutching the deed. Well, we're about to prove him very, very wrong. But what about college? My school? I pulled her into a hug. Trust me, honey, this land is worth far more than what your father took from us. We just need to be smart about it. An hour later, I sat across from Nora at Carlo's, spreading out the paperwork. She studied the documents, her eyes widening. This location, she whispered, the city's planning a major development project right next door. If we move fast, we could make enough to secure Chloe's future and then some, I finished. Nora looked up at me, a slow smile spreading across her face. You know who else has been trying to buy land in that area? Terrence's new company. They've been desperate to get a foothold there. Have they now? I sipped my coffee, feeling a plan take shape. Tell me more. This is going to be fun, Nora said, pulling out her phone. I'm canceling my afternoon appointments. We have work to do. For the first time since Terrence's announcement, I felt something other than despair. I felt powerful. Grandmother Mia had given me more than land. She'd given me a chance to write my own ending to this story, and I intended to make it a good one. You want to do what? Nora leaned forward across her pristine desk, her eyes wide with disbelief. We'd been working together for 2 days now, and I'd just shared my complete vision for the land. Mixed-use development, I repeated, spreading out the rough sketches I'd made. Affordable housing units, a community center, and small business spaces. Not just another soulless luxury complex. The profit margins would be smaller, she warned, but I could see the gleam of interest in her eyes. But the impact would be bigger. I pulled up the zoning regulations on my tablet. Look, the city's already offering tax incentives for this kind of development. Plus, it's exactly what the neighborhood needs. A knock at the door interrupted us. Yusef poked his head in, carrying 3 cups of coffee. Thought you ladies might need a refill. Any progress? Your sister's either crazy or brilliant, Nora said, accepting a cup. Maybe both. That's what I've been saying for years. He grinned, then turned serious. By the way, Sienna, I just saw Terrence at the courthouse. He was with his lawyer and Serena. My stomach clenched, but I kept my voice steady. How did they look? Like they own the world. He was bragging about some big development deal he's working on. Nora's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled. Speaking of deals, my contact at the Planning Commission just confirmed something interesting. Terrence's company has already invested heavily in the properties surrounding your grandmother's land. They're counting on acquiring that exact plot to make their project viable. Which means they're probably the ones who'll bid highest when we put it on the market, I said, the pieces falling into place. If we put it on the market, Nora corrected, her smile turning predatory. But what if we don't? What if we develop it ourselves? Yusef whistled. That would completely derail their plans. Exactly. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. Terrence always said I didn't understand the big picture. Time to prove him wrong. You'll need investors, Nora pointed out. Strong ones, and fast. Already working on it. Yusef pulled out his phone. Remember my friend Marcus from business school? He's been looking to diversify his portfolio. Said he'd meet us tomorrow. Perfect. I turned back to them. But first we need to visit the land. I want to show you exactly what I'm thinking. An hour later, we stood under the old oak tree where my grandmother used to bring me for picnics. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the overgrown field. It's perfect, Nora breathed, turning in a slow circle. The elevation, the access points. We could create something special here. My phone rang. Chloe's number. Mom? Her voice was shaky. Dad just came by the house. He wanted me to convince you to sign some papers. Said it would make everything easier. What did you tell him? I told him to leave. Then Serena tried to talk to me, acting all nice, saying how she hopes we can be friends someday. She made a disgusted sound. As if. That's my girl. I felt a surge of pride. How's the packing going? Actually, Aunt Sarah said I can stay with her until we figure things out. She lives in the same school district. Really? Put her on. My sister-in-law's voice came on the line. Don't worry, Sienna. We've got plenty of room, and the girls would love having Chloe here. Take the time you need to sort this out. Relief flooded through me. One problem solved. After hanging up, I noticed Nora studying some documents on her tablet. What is it? Just found something interesting in the public records, she said slowly. Terrence's company, they're leveraged to the hilt on this deal. If they can't acquire this land, they'll be in serious trouble, Yusuf finished. More than trouble, Nora corrected. They could lose everything they've invested so far. Millions. I walked to the old oak tree, running my hand along its rough bark. Grandmother Mia used to say that karma works in mysterious ways. Speaking of karma, Yusuf said, guess who just pulled up? A sleek black BMW was parking at the edge of the property. Terrence stepped out, followed by Serena. They hadn't noticed us yet. Well, Nora murmured. This should be interesting. I squared my shoulders and walked toward them, Nora and Yusuf flanking me. Terrence's confident smile faltered when he saw us. Sienna, what are you doing here? Funny, I said, keeping my voice light. I was about to ask you the same thing. This is private property. I'm here to discuss a business opportunity, he said stiffly. Really? I pulled the deed from my bag. With whom? Because according to this, I'm the owner, and I'm not interested in selling. The color drained from his face as he realized what I was holding. Behind him, Serena looked confused. Terrence? She asked. What's going on? I smiled, channeling every ounce of confidence my grandmother had passed down to me. Yes, Terrence. Why don't you explain what's going on? The game was about to change, and for once I was holding all the cards. You can't be serious about this development plan, Marcus said, leaning back in his chair at the crowded conference room. 5 other potential investors sat around the table, all men in expensive suits, all wearing similar expressions of doubt. I assure you, I'm very serious, I replied, clicking to the next slide in my presentation. The numbers speak for themselves. The numbers are impressive, another investor, David, interjected, but mixed-use development, affordable housing, it's not exactly premium. Nora stepped forward. Actually, our market research shows... Listen, Marcus cut her off. Maybe we should wait to discuss this with your husband. Is he involved in the project? I felt my face flush with anger, but before I could respond, the conference room door opened. Yusuf walked in, impeccable in his tailored suit. Sorry I'm late, he said, taking a seat. Traffic was terrible. Please, continue. And you are? Marcus asked. Yusuf Wolf, senior financial analyst at Goldman Sachs. He smiled pleasantly. Also, my sister's business partner in this venture. You were saying something about her husband? The room's atmosphere shifted subtly. I clicked to the next slide. As I was explaining, gentlemen, this development will generate a 22% return on investment within the first 3 years. The city's tax incentives alone will cover 15% of our initial costs. Plus, Nora added, we already have commitments from 3 major retailers for the commercial spaces. David leaned forward. Which retailers? I'm afraid that's confidential until the contracts are signed, I said smoothly. But I can tell you they're all Fortune 500 companies. My phone buzzed. A text from Chloe. Dad's here again, being weird. Says he needs to talk to you urgently. I typed back quickly. Stay at Aunt Sarah's. I'll handle it. When I looked up, Marcus was studying the financial projections with newfound interest. These numbers for the affordable housing units, they're guaranteed by the state? Yes, Yusuf confirmed. And the waiting list is already over 200 families long. One more thing, I added, pulling out a folder. This morning, we received preliminary approval for additional tax credits under the Urban Development Initiative. The investors exchanged glances. David cleared his throat. Perhaps we were too hasty in our initial assessment. I should hope so, Nora said dryly, because as of an hour ago, we received another offer for partnership. Full funding, no questions asked. This wasn't strictly true, but they didn't need to know that. Marcus sat up straighter. From whom? I'm afraid that's confidential, I smiled, but their offer expires at 5 p.m. today. The meeting wrapped up 30 minutes later, with 3 of the investors requesting private follow-up discussions. As they filed out, Youssef high-fived me. "That was brilliant," he grinned. "The fake competing offer? Classic." "Who says it was fake?" Nora winked. "I've been making calls all morning." My phone buzzed again. This time it was Terrence. "What do you want?" I answered coldly. "We need to talk," he said, his voice tense. "About the land. My investors are getting nervous." "Your investors?" I laughed. "That sounds like a you problem." "Damn it, Sienna. You have no idea what you're doing. This is bigger than your petty revenge." "Petty revenge?" I felt my voice rise. "You sold our house without telling me. You emptied our accounts. You betrayed our family. And you think this is about petty revenge?" Silence on his end. "Let me be clear," I continued. "I know exactly what I'm doing, and I know exactly how much trouble you're in with your investors. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to transfer Chloe's college fund back into my account, all of it, by the end of today. Or what? Or tomorrow morning, I start construction on a community center, right in the middle of your luxury development plans." You wouldn't. Try me. I hung up and turned to find Nora and Youssef staring at me. "Remind me never to get on your bad side," Youssef said. Nora checked her watch. "The contractors are ready to break ground whenever we give the word. Are we really doing this?" I walked to the window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Terrence was probably pacing in his office, realizing just how badly he'd underestimated me. "Yes," I said. "But first, let's give him until the end of the day to make things right with Chloe's college fund. After that," I turned back to them with a smile, "we start building something beautiful." "Speaking of beautiful," Youssef said, checking his phone, "wait until you see what the architects just sent over. The community center designs are incredible." As we gathered around his phone to look at the plans, I felt a surge of pride. This wasn't just about getting back at Terrence anymore. It was about creating something meaningful, something that would help families like mine build better futures. Grandmother Mia would have been proud. My phone buzzed one more time. A banking notification? Transfer received? I smiled. Terrence had made his choice. Now it was time to make mine. The morning sun cast long shadows across the land as I walked through the tall grass, coffee in hand. Construction would begin next week, but today I needed to say goodbye to this place as it was, wild and untamed, just like my grandmother had loved it. "I thought I might find you here," a voice called out. I turned to see a young woman approaching hesitantly. "Serena, if Terrence sent you—" "He didn't," she cut in quickly. "Actually, he doesn't know I'm here." She wrapped her arms around herself, looking uncomfortable in her designer clothes among the wildflowers. "I needed to talk to you, woman to woman." I gestured to a fallen log. "Have a seat." She perched on the edge, fidgeting with her watch. "The thing is, I'm starting to see a side of Terrence I didn't expect." "Let me guess. The controlling side? The one that makes you feel like you're walking on eggshells?" Her head snapped up. "How did you—" 16 years of marriage, I said simply. I know all his moves. Yesterday, he threw a glass against the wall because a deal fell through. She twisted her hands together. "He said it was your fault, that you're trying to ruin him." "I'm not trying to ruin anyone. I'm building something." "The community center?" She looked around. "This is where it's going to be?" I nodded. "Among other things. Want to see the plans?" I pulled out my tablet, showing her the renderings. As we scrolled through them, I noticed something on her wrist, a fading bruise, partially covered by her bracelet. "Did he do that?" I asked quietly. She quickly pulled her sleeve down. "It was an accident. He was stressed about the investors." "Serena," I set the tablet down. "There's something you should see." I led her to the old oak tree and pointed to a small metal box nestled in its roots. Inside were old photographs and letters. "These belong to my grandmother," I explained, pulling out a yellowed envelope. "She left them here for me to find. Want to know why?" Serena nodded. "Because my grandfather was just like Terrence. Charming in public, volatile in private. He controlled all their money, made all their decisions, until one day she'd had enough." "What did she do?" "She got smart, started hiding money, making plans, bought this land without him knowing." I gestured around us. "It became her freedom fund. But Terrence says he loves me, Serena whispered. He says once this deal goes through, everything will be perfect. And the bruise? Was that perfect too? She fell silent, staring at the ground. My phone rang. Nora. Turn on the news, she said without preamble. Channel 7. I pulled up the live stream on my tablet. Serena leaned in to watch. Breaking news in the financial sector, the anchor was saying. Major development company faces investigation for alleged fraudulent practices. Sources say the company's CEO, Terrence Riley, is being questioned about irregular fund transfers and misrepresented assets. Serena's face went pale. He told me those transfers were normal business operations. Let me guess, he asked you to sign some documents recently, as head of accounting? She nodded slowly. Oh God. You need to protect yourself, I said, right now. I don't know how. Her voice cracked. Everything I have is tied to him, my apartment, my car. I might be able to help with that, I said, an idea forming. But first, you need to do something important. What? Tell the truth. To the investigators, to yourself, all of it. She touched her bruised wrist. I'm scared. I know, but you're stronger than you think. I handed her Yusuf's business card. My brother knows some good lawyers. They can help protect you legally. Why are you helping me? She asked. I'm the other woman. You should hate me. Hate doesn't build anything worthwhile, I said, thinking of my grandmother. Besides, looks like we were both fooled by the same man. My phone buzzed again. Chloe this time. Mom, did you see the news? Dad's company is imploding. I saw, honey. You okay? Are you kidding? I'm great. Jessica's dad is a reporter. He says Dad might go to jail. I looked at Serena, who was already dialing the number on Yusuf's card. Let's not celebrate too soon, I told Chloe. Focus on your studies. I'll handle everything else. After hanging up, I watched Serena walk away, her shoulders straighter, her step more determined. She had taken the first step toward her own freedom, just like my grandmother had done decades ago. I touched the rough bark of the oak tree, imagining Grandmother Mia standing here, planning her escape, building her future. She'd turned this land into something more than dirt and grass. She'd made it a symbol of resilience. Now it was my turn to build something meaningful on this foundation, not out of hate or revenge, but out of hope for something better. My phone lit up with another news alert about Terrence's company. The house of cards was finally falling, but I was too busy planning tomorrow to watch it crash. The investors are ready, Nora announced, straightening my blazer as we stood outside the conference room. All 7 of them. Even Marcus brought additional backers. Through the glass walls, I could see them gathered around the large table, reviewing our proposal documents. The stakes had never been higher. You've got this, Yusuf whispered, giving my shoulder a squeeze. Remember what we practiced. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. The room fell silent. Good morning, I said, my voice steady. Thank you all for coming. Before we begin, I have some updates to our original proposal. If this is about the recent news regarding your husband's company, Marcus began, but I cut him off. This isn't about Terrence. This is about making something better. I clicked to the first slide. We've secured 3 additional retail commitments and increased our projected return by 4%. David leaned forward. The community center designs have been approved by the city council. Nora jumped in, distributing updated renderings, with expedited permits. A murmur of approval rippled through the room. I was about to continue when my phone buzzed. Serena's name flashed on the screen. Excuse me, I said, stepping out. I need to take this. Sienna? Serena's voice was shaking. I just finished talking to the FBI. They want me to testify against Terrence. Are you okay? No. Yes. I don't know. They showed me documents, things I signed without reading properly. I could be implicated if I don't cooperate. Listen to me, I said firmly. You're doing the right thing. Have you spoken with the lawyer Yusuf recommended? Yes, she's here with me now. But Terrence keeps calling, threatening to... A commotion in the conference room caught my attention. Through the glass, I saw the investors standing, pointing at their phones. I have to go, I told Serena. Call me later, and Serena, stay strong. I rushed back inside to find everyone watching a breaking news alert on their devices. Major development company CEO arrested on fraud charges, Marcus read aloud. Multiple properties frozen pending investigation. including the land surrounding your grandmother's property, Nora whispered to me. I cleared my throat. Gentlemen, this changes nothing about our proposal. In fact, it makes our project even more vital to the community. How so? David asked. Those frozen properties? They were meant to be luxury condos. Now they'll sit empty, tying up valuable land in legal battles. I clicked to a new slide. But our project? We can break ground next week, create jobs, housing, opportunities. The optics would be fantastic, one investor mused. While others are caught in scandal, we'd be building something the community actually needs. Exactly. I pulled up our budget projections, and with the reduced competition, our profit margins just got even better. My phone buzzed again. Chloe this time. I ignored it, focusing on the investor's questions. 20 minutes later, Marcus stood up. I think we've seen enough, he said. We're in. Full funding, immediate timeline. The others nodded in agreement. As they filed out, sharing handshakes and congratulations, I finally checked Chloe's message. Dad just came to Aunt Sarah's. He's drunk making scenes. Police are here. I showed the message to Youssef, who immediately grabbed his keys. I'll handle it. You finish here. After he left, Nora poured 2 cups of coffee from the conference room carafe. Someday, huh? It's not over yet. I sipped the coffee, grimacing at its bitterness. We still need to... The door burst open. Terrence stumbled in, his tie askew, eyes wild. You did this, he slurred, pointing an unsteady finger at me. You turned Serena against me, ruined everything. You did that all by yourself, I replied calmly, though my heart was racing. Now please leave before I call security. Security? He laughed harshly. I built this whole damn city. You think some rent-a-cop can stop me from... From what? Nora stepped between us. From adding assault to your growing list of charges? He took a step forward, but 2 security guards appeared in the doorway, followed by Youssef. There he is, officers, Youssef said to the police officers behind him, the one causing a disturbance at my sister's house. Terrence's face crumpled as the officers approached. Sienna, please, we can fix this, together, like before. I walked up to him, close enough to smell the whiskey on his breath. No, Terrence, there is no we anymore. You made sure of that when you betrayed our family. Ma'am, one officer asked, would you like to press charges? I looked at the man I'd once loved, now swaying and defeated. No, he's not worth the paperwork. Just get him out of here. As they led him away, Nora squeezed my arm. You okay? Better than okay. I turned to the window, where construction equipment was already arriving at the edge of my grandmother's land. We have work to do. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Serena. Thank you for showing me what strength looks like. I smiled, watching the sun set over what would soon become something beautiful, something worth building. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the groundbreaking ceremony of Hope Gardens Community Development, I announced, standing before the crowd gathered around my grandmother's oak tree. 3 months had passed since Terrence's arrest, and everything had changed. Chloe beamed from the front row, her phone recording everything. Next to her sat Serena, looking healthier and more confident in casual clothes, her designer wardrobe long forgotten. This project represents more than just buildings, I continued. It represents second chances, new beginnings, and the power of community. As I picked up the ceremonial shovel, my hand trembled slightly. Nora stepped forward, placing her hand over mine. Together, she whispered. We pushed the shovel into the earth as cameras flashed. Behind us, bulldozers stood ready to begin the real work. Mom! Chloe rushed forward after the ceremony, hugging me tight. That was amazing. And guess what? I just got an email from Stanford. My heart stopped. And? She thrust her phone at me, jumping up and down. Early acceptance, full scholarship. Tears welled in my eyes as I read the acceptance letter. All those nights of worry about her college fund, all the fear about her future, gone. Congratulations, Serena said, approaching cautiously. I brought something you might want to see. She handed me a newspaper. The headline read, Local developer pleads guilty to fraud charges. Below was a photo of Terrence being led into court. 10 years, Serena said quietly. That's what they're recommending. I testified yesterday. How did it feel? I asked. Terrifying. Liberating. She smiled. The DA offered me immunity in exchange for my testimony. Said your evidence helped build their case. What evidence? Chloe asked. The transfer records your mother kept, Serena explained. Every suspicious transaction, every irregular payment. She documented everything. Always keep receipts, I winked at Chloe, especially when dealing with untrustworthy people. Youssef jogged up, waving a stack of papers. Hot off the press, first batch of housing applications. We've got over 500 families interested already. Speaking of housing, Nora called from nearby. Sienna, you need to see this. She led us to where the old oak tree stood. Construction workers had discovered something while clearing the area around it. A small metal box, different from the one that had contained my grandmother's letters. Found it embedded in the trunk, one worker explained. Must have been there for decades. With shaking hands, I opened the box. Inside was a single photograph. My grandmother, young and beautiful, standing proudly in front of this very tree. On the back, she'd written, "The day I chose freedom, 1975. Look, Chloe pointed to the background of the photo. Isn't that the same view of the city? It is, I smiled, remembering all the stories grandmother Mia never got to tell me. And now we're building something she would have been proud of. Mrs. Riley? A voice called. I turned to see Marcus approaching with several other investors. It's Ms. Thompson now, I corrected. Back to my own name. Of course, my apologies. He gestured to the construction site. We've been discussing the project's next phase. Given the overwhelming response, we'd like to propose doubling the initial investment. Before I could respond, another commotion drew our attention. A sleek car had pulled up, and a woman in a business suit emerged. That's the mayor, Nora whispered. Ms. Thompson? The mayor called out, walking briskly toward us. I hope I'm not too late. I wanted to personally deliver this. She handed me an official-looking document. The city council unanimously approved your proposal for the educational grant program. Every family in Hope Gardens will have access to college savings accounts for their children. Chloe grabbed my arm. Mom, do you realize what this means? Other kids like me, they won't have to worry about their futures being stolen. I hugged her close, watching as the construction crews began their work. The sound of machinery filled the air, but underneath it all, I could almost hear my grandmother's voice, telling me to be brave, to be smart, to be free. Ms. Thompson? Serena approached again, looking nervous. I was wondering, there's an opening in your management team for the community center. I know my background is in accounting, but you want to help? I smiled. Good. We need people who understand the importance of second chances. As the sun began to set, I stood with Chloe under the old oak tree, watching the first foundations being laid. You know what, Mom? She said softly. Dad always said revenge was for weak people. But this isn't revenge, is it? This is justice. No, honey, I corrected her, thinking of all the families who would soon call this place home. This is legacy. My phone buzzed. A text from Nora. Wait till you see tomorrow's headlines. Hope Gardens, a community rises from fraud's ashes. I smiled, pocketing the phone. Let Terrence read that from his prison cell. We were too busy building something beautiful to care about his opinion anymore. Ready? Chloe asked, adjusting her graduation cap in the mirror. Almost. I pinned a small photograph of grandmother Mia to the inside of her gown, right over her heart. There, now she's with you too. We stood in Chloe's new bedroom at Hope Gardens, where we'd moved after the first phase of construction was completed. Through her window, I could see families enjoying the community park that had replaced the wild field. The old oak tree still stood proud at its center. Mrs. Martinez's daughter got her college acceptance letter yesterday, Chloe said, watching children play below. That's the 5th one this week. 6th, I corrected. Don't forget Tommy from Building C. A knock at the door interrupted us. Nora poked her head in, waving an envelope. Special delivery from the courthouse. My hands shook as I opened it. The final divorce decree, and full custody. As if there was any doubt, Chloe snorted. After what came out at his sentencing. Speaking of which, Nora said, checking her phone, Serena just texted. The support group for financial fraud survivors is packed tonight. She's really found her calling. Another knock. This time it was Youssef, looking sharp in his suit. The car's ready. But first, he handed me a newspaper. Page 3. The headline read, Hope Gardens model to be replicated nationwide. Below was a photo of our community center, bustling with activity. They're calling it the Thompson model, Yusuf grinned. How's that for karma? Save the newspaper, I told him, but we need to go. I don't want to be late for my daughter's graduation. The ceremony was held in the school auditorium, packed with proud families. As I watched Chloe walk across the stage, her honors cords gleaming, I felt a tap on my shoulder. Excuse me, a woman whispered. Are you Sienna, the one who built Hope Gardens? I nodded. My sister just moved in there with her kids, after her divorce. She squeezed my hand. Thank you for showing us there's life after betrayal. Before I could respond, the principal announced, and now, our valedictorian, Chloe Thompson. Chloe stepped up to the podium, confident and poised. When I was younger, my father told me that success meant having the biggest house, the most expensive car, the finest things. But then I watched my mother build something different, a community where success means lifting others up as you rise. My vision blurred with tears as she continued. In Hope Gardens, I learned that true wealth isn't in bank accounts or stock portfolios. It's in the single mom who can finally afford to take night classes. It's in the kids who no longer have to change schools every time rent goes up. It's in the elderly couple who can retire with dignity in their own community. She paused, looking directly at me. My mother taught me that when life knocks you down, you don't just get back up. You build stairs to help others rise too. That's what I'm taking with me to Stanford, and that's what I hope to bring back to our community when I return. After the ceremony, we gathered in the community center for a celebration. Families from Hope Gardens mingled with school friends and teachers. Serena was there too, helping serve cake to excited graduates. Sienna? She pulled me aside. There's something you should know. Terrence wrote to me from prison. My stomach tightened. What did he want? To apologize, and to ask if we could help him invest his prison earnings in Hope Gardens once he's released. She laughed bitterly, as if money could fix what he broke. What did you tell him? That Hope Gardens isn't built on revenge or redemption. It's built on respect, something he never understood. A commotion by the door drew our attention. Marcus and the other investors were arriving, carrying gift bags for the graduates. Still can't believe you turned down that buyout offer, Marcus said, handing Chloe a present. Could have made a fortune. We are making a fortune, I replied. Just not the kind you can count. Later that evening, I found Chloe sitting under the oak tree, still in her cap and gown. Found another one of Grandma Mia's notes, she said, holding up a weathered paper. It was tucked in a branch. Want to hear it? I sat beside her. Dear Sienna, she read, if you're reading this, you've already learned life's hardest lesson, that sometimes the things that break us become the foundations of something stronger. Don't waste time hating those who hurt you. Build something they can't tear down instead. Love, Grandma. I looked up at the buildings around us, at the lights and windows where families were building new lives, at the community center where dreams were taking root. We did it, Grandma, I whispered. We built something stronger. Chloe leaned her head on my shoulder. You know what's funny, Mom? Dad thought he was taking everything from us, but really, he gave us the push we needed to build everything we have now. Sometimes, I said, watching the sunset paint our community in gold, the best revenge is simply proving them wrong. And in the gentle evening breeze, I could have sworn I heard Grandmother Mia laugh in agreement.
Leah, we need to go, now. Alex stood by the door, one shoe on, one shoe off. His phone buzzed on the counter, a jittery reminder of his mother's panicked voice moments earlier. Did she say what happened? I asked, rushing to grab my keys. No, just that everything's out on the lawn and she needs us. Sound it off, Leah. Really off. We sped through the quiet streets, my heart drumming in sync with the pulsing engine. Ruth had always been a strong woman, not the sort to easily panic. My fingers tightened around the wheel, my mind racing. When we pulled up to the house, the scene was jarring. Ruth's belongings were strewn across the yard. Old photo albums lay open, pages fluttering in the breeze. Furniture was haphazardly arranged, and Ruth sat on the porch, a calm smile on her face. It didn't fit. Mom? Alex rushed forward. What happened? Are you okay? Ruth looked up, her eyes twinkling with something I couldn't quite place. They think they've outsmarted me. Little do they know, their game has just begun. Alex and I exchanged a worried glance. What do you mean? Who did this? Ruth patted the space beside her, inviting us to sit. Sebastian and Trina. They want control, but I'm not so easily fooled. The weight of her words hung in the air. We had known Sebastian and Trina were ambitious, but this was beyond anything we imagined. Leah, they left her here, just abandoned her. Alex's voice cracked with frustration. Mom, you need to come with us. It's wrong. We can't just leave you here. Ruth nodded, standing up with a grace that belied her age. Let's gather what we can. The rest can wait. As we packed up Ruth's life, she seemed oddly composed. Alex kept shaking his head, eyes clouded with confusion. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Ruth's cryptic comment about the game had unsettled me deeply. Back at our place, we settled Ruth into the guest room. Alex and I sat in the kitchen, the silence stretching between us. Finally, he broke it. She said, "Their game has just begun, Leah." What does she mean? I shrugged, feeling the same unease. I don't know, but we need to find out. Ruth's presence changed the dynamic of our home completely. She acted as though nothing unusual had happened, her demeanor eerily serene. Over dinner, she was her usual bright self, discussing mundane things like the weather and neighborhood gossip. It was only later, as I watched her from the doorway of her room, that I caught a fleeting glimpse of something cold and calculating in her eyes. It disappeared almost as soon as it appeared. The next morning, Alex and I sat sipping coffee, our thoughts clearly on the same track. We need to talk to Sebastian and Trina, I suggested. Agreed, but let's do it carefully. They won't confess easily. Leah, I just want a family that's close. I thought moving back here would bring us together. His voice was laced with disappointment. I reached out, giving his hand a reassuring squeeze. We'll figure this out. We will. Days turned into a blur of whispered conversations and silent tensions. Alex set up a meeting with Sebastian. Meanwhile, Ruth continued her cryptic hints, always stopping just short of revealing her full hand. One night, as I walked past Ruth's room, I heard her murmur, "The pawns are in place." Yet my blood ran cold. Something serious was unfolding, and we were right in the middle of it. As we prepared to face Sebastian, a mixture of dread and determination settled in my chest. This wasn't just about Ruth anymore. It was about uncovering the truth, protecting our family, and maybe playing a game we hadn't known we'd entered. And I was ready to win. Sitting across from Sebastian was like confronting a glacier, cold and immovable. His eyes darted between Alex and me, a smirk playing on his lips. Trina sat beside him, flipping through her phone, acting disinterested. "So what's this about, little brother?" Sebastian finally asked, that smug grin not leaving his face. Alex clenched his fists under the table. "Mom's things were thrown out. She was scared and confused. We want to know why." Sebastian raised an eyebrow, leaning back in his chair. "Mom's condition is worsening. It's better for her to be with someone who can provide constant care." "And that someone is you?" Alex's voice dripped with sarcasm. Trina finally looked up, her expression bored. "She needs stability, Alex. Your job keeps you busy. We can provide what she needs." I felt my anger rising. Abandoning her on the porch doesn't sound like providing care. Sebastian shrugged. She was being difficult. We had to make a point. Alex's face turned red. "A point? She's your mother." Sebastian's smirk faded, replaced by a cold glare. "Don't lecture me, Alex. I'm handling it." The tension in the room was suffocating. I realized we wouldn't get any honest answers here. Alex stood up abruptly, and I followed. "This isn't over, Sebastian," Alex said. Sebastian's eyes narrowed. "Make sure it's not. You wouldn't want to test me." As we left, I couldn't shake the feeling that Sebastian and Trina were hiding something far more sinister. They had no intention of letting Ruth regain control over her life. When we got home, Ruth was knitting in the living room, calm as ever. She glanced up at us. "How did it go?" she asked with a knowing smile. "Not well," Alex replied, dropping onto the couch. "Did you expect anything different?" Ruth's tone was light, but her eyes were sharp. We stayed silent for a moment before Ruth spoke again. "It's time you knew what Sebastian and Trina are really after." She motioned for us to sit. We listened as she began to unravel the tangled web of manipulation. Sebastian and Trina had been planning this for a long time. Ruth's assets, her will, everything was part of their strategy to secure control. "They think I'm losing my mind," Ruth said with a hint of amusement. "But I've been keeping tabs on them." "They've underestimated you," I said, admiration creeping into my voice. Ruth nodded. "Their greed will be their undoing." That night, Alex and I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. "We need a plan," he said quietly. I turned to him. "We need to protect her and expose them." In the following days, we set our plan into motion. Ruth handed over documents, receipts, anything that tracked Sebastian and Trina's moves. Every revelation fueled our resolve. One evening, our doorbell rang. It was Trina, holding a box of Ruth's things. "Mom left these at the house," she said sweetly. "She's not your responsibility anymore," Alex snapped. Trina's eyes glinted. "We'll see about that." As she left, I exchanged a look with Alex. The battle lines were drawn. Their game was cruel, but we were ready to fight back. Ruth's quiet strength bolstered our determination. We'd protect her from this twisted game and bring Sebastian and Trina's plans crashing down. The stakes were high, but like Ruth said, it was they who had miscalculated. Every weekend, Alex and I visited Ruth at Sebastian's house. Each time, the hostility from Sebastian and Trina was palpable. One Saturday, we found Ruth alone in the living room, gazing absently out the window. "Hi, Mom," Alex said gently. She turned, smiling. "Hello, dear. Leah." Sebastian entered, his face darkening at our presence. "You're early. We wanted to spend some time with Mom," I said, matching his cold stare. "Don't mind us," Alex added. "We'll just be a while." Sebastian scoffed. "Make it quick. Trina and I have plans." We exchanged a look with Ruth, her eyes calm but aware. We sat and chatted, trying to ignore Sebastian's hovering presence. After a while, Ruth's gaze drifted to her eldest son. "Sebastian, why don't you join us?" His sneer was immediate. "Pardon? I have better things to do than listen to family trivia." "Like plotting against Mom?" Alex shot back. Sebastian's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Alex." Ruth's hand on Alex's arm was the only thing that kept him from saying more. "Let's not quarrel," she said softly. He bit his lip, but stayed silent. Ruth turned to me, her eyes asking 1,000 questions. I forced a smile. "It's just frustrating seeing how you're treated." "Leah," she said, her voice firm, "we'll handle it." Sebastian's phone buzzed, breaking the tension. "Mom, Trina and I are taking over your care. It's obvious you can't live alone anymore." Ruth's composed mask didn't slip. "And what exactly do you mean by that?" Sebastian shrugged. "You'll be moving in with us permanently." My jaw dropped. "Without discussing it?" "She's not in any state to argue," he replied, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Ruth's eyes locked on mine. "We'll see." The atmosphere was heavy as we left. Back home, Alex punched a wall in frustration. "He's manipulating everything. We can't let him do this." "We won't," I promised, "but we need evidence." The following weeks, we documented every interaction, every comment. Ruth's clarity in those moments was undeniable. She played along, giving just enough to keep Sebastian and Trina at bay. One afternoon, while Ruth and I sat in the garden, she spoke quietly. "They're convinced they've won, but every pawn they move brings them closer to their downfall." Alex joined us, bringing his laptop. "Look at this. Mom, did you sign any documents recently?" Her eyes flickered with a hint of triumph. "Sebastian tried to force my hand. I signed nothing of importance." "That's crucial," Alex said, showing us forged papers. "They're trying to make it look like you did." Ruth's smile was frightfully serene. "They'll regret underestimating me." Days later, I overheard Sebastian and Trina conspiring. "Once she's declared unfit, everything's ours," Trina whispered. Sebastian smirked. "It's only a matter of time." I recorded their conversation, my heart pounding. Our proof was building, and with it, our resolve. The next family dinner, Ruth was the picture of serenity. Mid-conversation, she casually dropped, "I'll be making some changes to my will." Sebastian's fork clattered to his plate. "What changes?" Ruth smiled sweetly. "To protect myself from unforeseen circumstances." "You can't do that," Trina snapped, panic edging her voice. "Oh, but I can," Ruth replied, "and I will." The dinner ended in frosty silence, but we knew we had them on edge now. That night, Alex and I stayed up late, plans unfurling between us. Ruth wasn't alone in her fight. We were a team, and we aimed to expose every deceit, every betrayal. The game was far from over. Ruth's resilience and cunning fortified our resolve. Sebastian and Trina might have started this, but we intended to finish it. Days turned into weeks, and each visit to Sebastian's felt like stepping into enemy territory. Ruth remained a calm force, but the tension was suffocating. Her serene demeanor only seemed to infuriate Sebastian and Trina more. One humid Saturday afternoon, Alex and I were sorting through some of Ruth's papers in the guest room when we heard raised voices downstairs. We hurried to find Ruth and Sebastian in a heated argument. You can't just take over my life, Sebastian. Ruth's voice was trembling but firm. You're not thinking straight, Mom. This is for your own good, Sebastian snarled, his face a mask of frustration. Alex stepped between them. Stop this, Sebastian. She's not incapable. You have no right. Trina appeared out of nowhere, her face twisted with a mean smile. You're fighting a losing battle, Alex. Just accept it. No, Alex shot back. We're not giving up on Mom. Ruth's eyes met mine with a silent resolve, then turned back to Sebastian. I may be getting old, but I'm not blind to your intentions. Sebastian's jaw tightened. You'll regret standing against us. Later that night, as we prepared to leave, Ruth pulled us aside. I overheard them talking, she whispered, her expression more serious than usual. What did they say? I asked, heart pounding. They plan to get me declared mentally unfit. They need the control. Alex's eyes widened. How can they do that? Now Ruth's smile was grim. They've already got a doctor who'll back their claim. Then we need to act fast, I said. We need more evidence. The days that followed were filled with a quiet, simmering tension. Ruth continued to play her role, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. Still, she never wavered. One evening, Alex and I decided to pay a surprise visit. We arrived to find Ruth sitting quietly in the living room, her usually neat hair slightly disheveled. She motioned us to sit. Listen carefully, she said softly. I've learned they plan to have me moved to a facility. What? Alex's voice was loud, his eyes wide with disbelief. It's happening soon, Ruth continued. Sebastian wants to make it look like I can't live at home anymore. Trina suddenly appeared, her eyes narrowing as she noticed us. What are you doing here? We needed to talk to Mom, I said calmly. Trina didn't bother to hide her contempt. You're meddling where you don't belong. It's too late to save her. Ruth stood up slowly, her eyes never leaving Trina's. This isn't over. Trina smirked. It will be soon. We left with a fierce determination burning in our chests. At home, we gathered everything we had. The recordings, the forged documents, every piece of the puzzle that showed Sebastian and Trina's plans. The next morning, we confronted Sebastian and Trina in Ruth's living room. Alex held up a stack of papers. We know what you've been doing, and we have proof. Sebastian's face went white, but he quickly masked it with anger. Get out. This isn't your business. It's very much our business, I said, stepping closer. We won't let you do this. Trina's eyes flared with anger. You have no idea what you're up against. Ruth's voice cut through the tension. Neither do you. That's when I noticed the flicker of doubt in their eyes. They sensed the tide turning. We left them in a stunned silence, our mission clear. Protect Ruth at all costs and bring their schemes into the light. As we walked away, the weight of the conflict didn't seem so crushing anymore. For the first time, we felt hope. The battle wasn't over, but we were prepared for whatever came next. Ruth's strength fortified us, and together we would dismantle the sinister game piece by piece. The following week, our tense standoff with Sebastian and Trina escalated rapidly. Secrets and lies clashed with our determination to protect Ruth. One rainy afternoon, I decided to sneak into Sebastian's office while he was out. The room reeked of arrogance, with its dark, imposing furniture and meticulously organized documents. My hands shook slightly as I rifled through drawers. Footsteps in the hallway made my heart race. I ducked behind the heavy curtains just as Trina entered. She was on the phone, her voice sharp and hushed. The doctor will declare her unfit by Friday. Make sure the papers are ready. Once that's secure, we'll transfer everything into our names. Recordings. I fumbled with my phone, pressing record as fast as I could, capturing her malicious plan. Our proof was growing stronger by the minute. After Trina left, I carefully placed everything back in its place and slipped out of the office, heart pounding. As Alex drove us home, we replayed the recording. Each word filled us with a fresh wave of anger. We've got them now, Alex said, gripping the wheel. This proves everything. The next day, Ruth asked to be taken to a familiar park. We walked through the quiet paths, the sun casting long, comforting shadows. Her eyes were alert, yet her silence indicated contemplation. They've put their pieces on the board, she finally said. It's time for us to make our move. Alex nodded. We're ready. We have enough to take to the attorney. That evening, we prepared the documents and recordings, carefully organizing them to present a compelling case. Each file was another nail in Sebastian and Trina's coffin. The confrontation came sooner than expected. On Friday morning, we received a call. "Mom's gone." Alex's voice was frantic. "They've taken her." I swallowed a rising panic. "Where?" "I don't know. They're not answering." We drove to Sebastian's house, a firestorm of urgency fueling us. Upon arrival, we found the house empty, echoing with a disturbing silence. Panic turned to grim resolve. "Check the study," Alex urged. "There might be clues." In Sebastian's office, we found an itinerary for a private clinic. I snapped a picture and raced back to Alex. "This must be where they took her." "We're bringing her back," Alex said, his voice steely with determination. We reached the clinic in record time. As we barged in, Sebastian met us at the door, fury blazing in his eyes. "You're not supposed to be here, and you're not supposed to kidnap our mother," Alex shouted. Trina stood beside him, smug and defiant. "We have every right. She's unfit." Ruth's voice broke through the commotion. "Funny, considering you needed to forge documents to prove it." Alex stepped forward. "We have recordings of your plans, your threats. It's over, Sebastian." Sebastian's expression flickered with doubt, but quickly hardened into a sneer. "You have nothing." "We'll see about that," Alex replied, holding up his phone. "We're taking this to the authorities." Trina's confidence crumbled as the reality of their situation hit her. "This isn't over," she screamed, but her voice lacked conviction. We escorted Ruth out, her demeanor calm, but her eyes blazing with triumph. On the drive home, she said, "They underestimated us." "That was their first mistake," I replied, glancing at Alex, who squeezed my hand. At home, we sat around the dining table, a quiet victory settling over us. Ruth's strength had been our guide, her resilience our beacon. Sebastian and Trina's vile nature had been their undoing, and with every piece of evidence, we moved closer to justice. We knew the battle wasn't entirely over, but we stood united, ready for whatever came next. Ruth smiled at us, her eyes full of pride. They thought they outsmarted us, but they were playing my game all along. And in that moment, I felt it in my bones. This family was stronger than their deceit, and together we would ensure that justice was served. The following Monday, we gathered our evidence and headed to our attorney's office. The weight of everything we'd collected bore down on us, but Ruth's presence steeled our resolve. Mr. Harris, our attorney, scanned through the documents and recordings with growing astonishment. "This is damning evidence," he said finally. "It's more than enough to take to the authorities." Ruth nodded firmly. "It's time we put an end to their schemes." We left Mr. Harris's office with a sense of guarded triumph. Now the battle was in the hands of the legal system. Our job wasn't finished, but we had struck a decisive blow. Back at home, Ruth shared a quiet moment with Alex and me. "Thank you for standing by me," she said softly. "This wouldn't have been possible without you." "We're a family," Alex replied. "That's what we do." A week later, the police arrived at Sebastian's house. We watched from a distance as officers escorted him and Trina into custody. The sight was surreal, the culmination of all our efforts, finally taking tangible form. "That's just the beginning," Ruth said, watching them being driven away. "Their reckoning is far from over." Later that evening, Ruth invited us to join her in the living room. "There's something you need to know," she said, motioning us to sit. She began recounting the moments she had overheard Sebastian and Trina's plans. It was clear from the start, they didn't just want control, they wanted everything. As she spoke, a chilling determination underscored her words. I decided to pretend, to play into their perceptions. Being underestimated gave me the upper hand. "You were brilliant, Mom," Alex said, admiration evident in his voice. "Thank you," she replied. "But the fight's not over yet. We have to see this through." The true extent of Ruth's cunning became clear when she revealed her final move. "I moved my assets into a trust managed by Leah before their plans could take hold." My breath caught. "You trusted me with everything?" Ruth's eyes softened. "You've always had a good heart, Leah. I knew you would protect my legacy." The next few days were a whirlwind. The scandal of Sebastian and Trina's arrest reverberated through the community, disgracing them publicly. Every news outlet carried the story of their attempt to manipulate and defraud their own mother. One evening, a knock at the door revealed an officer with more news. "Sebastian and Trina are being charged with elder abuse and fraud. Their trial is set for next month." Alex and I shared a look of relief. Finally, justice was within reach. Ruth's eyes sparkled with a renewed vigor. We'll be there to see it happen. The weeks leading up to the trial were tense, but Ruth's strength anchored us. She remained steadfast, her resolve unwavering. And when the day of the trial arrived, we walked into the courtroom as a united front. Sebastian and Trina looked defeated, far removed from their former arrogance. The evidence we provided painted a damning picture, and their defense crumbled under the weight of their deceit. Ruth took the stand, her testimony a powerful testament to her resilience. I am not a pawn in their game. I am my own person, and I will not be controlled. The verdict was clear and just, guilty on all counts. Outside the courthouse, the reality of our victory settled in. Ruth turned to us, her eyes filled with gratitude. We did it. No, Mom, Alex corrected gently. You did it. We just followed your lead. Ruth's smile was a beacon of the strength and love that had carried us through. This family is stronger together. They underestimated that, and it was their downfall. As we drove home, a sense of closure enveloped us. Ruth's cleverness and our unity had triumphed over deceit and greed. The battle had been long and arduous, but we emerged stronger, bound by the love and determination that made us a family. After the trial, a tense quiet settled over our lives. But beneath the calm surface, we knew the battle wasn't truly over. Sebastian and Trina might be facing jail time, but there were still loose ends to tie up. One evening, Ruth gathered us in the living room. There's something more you need to know, she said. Her eyes twinkled with a mischievous glint I hadn't seen before. What is it, Mom? Alex asked, curiosity piqued. Ruth looked at us with a sly smile. I've been planning one last move. Sebastian and Trina think they've hit rock bottom, but they haven't seen anything yet. I blinked in surprise. What do you mean? Ruth leaned back in her chair, her demeanor confident. Their house, their cars, everything they've accumulated using my money, I've already started the process to have it all seized. They'll have nothing left, Alex said, understanding dawning on his face. Ruth nodded. Exactly. They need to understand the full consequences of their actions. The next day, we worked with the attorneys to expedite the process. The legal wheels turned swiftly, and soon enough, the foreclosure notices were delivered. Facing both incarceration and financial ruin, Sebastian and Trina were left reeling. A week later, we visited the house one last time. The once intimidating mansion now stood eerily quiet, stripped of its former grandeur. Sebastian and Trina were there, gathering their remaining belongings. As we approached, Sebastian's face twisted with anger. You've taken everything from us. No, Ruth corrected calmly. You did that to yourselves. Trina's face was a mask of hatred. You think you've won, don't you? Yes, Ruth said simply. Not because of what I've taken, but because of what I've protected. Sebastian lunged forward, but the presence of our attorney and a couple of officers kept him at bay. This isn't over, he spat. Actually, it is, Alex said, stepping between us and Sebastian. For you, it's all over. We walked away from the scene knowing that Sebastian and Trina's downfall was complete. Ruth's resolve and our unity had ensured they could no longer harm our family. In the days that followed, the mood in our home lifted. Ruth's trust in us had brought a new level of closeness in our family dynamic. We spent more time together, enjoying the simple moments that had once seemed elusive. One sunny afternoon, we decided to have a small celebration in the backyard. As we set up the table, Ruth smiled warmly at us. This is what family should be, she said contentedly. Alex wrapped his arm around her shoulder. We owe it all to you, Mom. You taught us what it means to be strong. And clever? I added with a grin. Thank you, both of you, Ruth said, her eyes glistening with tears of joy. I wouldn't have come this far without you. Under the amber glow of the setting sun, we sat around the table, toasting to our shared victory and newfound peace. It felt like the dawn of a new chapter, one free from the shadows of betrayal. But as we basked in our moment of happiness, a slight worry tugged at the back of my mind. Would Sebastian and Trina truly give up? Had we really seen the last of their vile nature? Only time would tell. For now, though, we chose to live in the present, cherishing the harmony we had fought so hard to reclaim. Ruth's wisdom and courage had taught us that family wasn't just about blood. It was about standing up for each other, no matter the cost. In the end, Ruth's gambit had outsmarted the most cunning adversaries. It had shown us the true strength of our bonds and the importance of justice. And for that, we were eternally grateful. A month had passed since the trial, and life had settled into a new, comforting rhythm. Ruth now lived with us, her presence a constant source of strength and warmth. We all did our best to put the turbulent past behind us, though at times it cast long shadows over our days. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, a knock at the door shattered our peace. Alex went to answer it, and moments later he returned with a letter in his hand, his expression unreadable. "What is it?" I asked, my pulse quickening. "It's from Sebastian," he said, handing me the envelope. A chill ran down my spine as I opened it and began to read. "Dear Alex, it seems you and your beloved Leah have won this round. Enjoy your victory while it lasts. Just remember, a cornered animal is the most dangerous. We will be back." I looked at Ruth, who sat calmly awaiting our reaction. "He's threatening us," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Ruth sighed, her eyes reflecting a mix of annoyance and resolve. "Let them try. We're ready for whatever comes next." True to Ruth's spirit, we continued to live our lives, not allowing Sebastian's ominous message to shake us. We fortified our defenses, both legally and emotionally. Our unity was our strength, and we knew he couldn't break that. One afternoon, Alex and I found Ruth in the garden, tending to her beloved roses. "Mom," Alex said gently, "we need to talk about the future." Ruth looked up, her hands still covered in soil. "What's on your mind?" "We want to ensure that you're always protected," I explained. "Maybe we should formalize the trust and secure everything." Ruth wiped her hands on a cloth and stood up, her expression thoughtful. "You're right. It's time to take the final steps." In the days that followed, we worked with Mr. Harris to solidify Ruth's assets into an irrevocable trust. Each signature and sealed document felt like another layer of protection forming around her, around us. One evening, while we were finalizing the papers, Ruth paused, looking over the documents. "This isn't just about protecting me, you know," she said, her eyes meeting mine. "It's about protecting what's right, ensuring that deceit never wins." We nodded, understanding and appreciating the gravity of her words. Weeks passed, and the threat from Sebastian faded into a distant memory, though we remained vigilant. As summer gave way to autumn, our new life with Ruth felt more natural, a testament to the resilience we all shared. One crisp autumn morning, Ruth called us into the living room. There, she sat with an old, weathered book on her lap. "I want to read you something," she said, opening the book. Her voice filled the room as she recited a passage about justice, love, and the unbreakable bonds of family. "This is what you've given me," she said, closing the book and looking at us with glistening eyes. "A family that stands together, even in the face of adversity." Alex hugged her tight, his voice thick with emotion. "We wouldn't be here without you, Mom. You showed us what it means to truly fight for each other." Ruth smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. "And you showed me what it means to be truly loved and protected." As we sat there, wrapped in the warmth of each other's presence, I realized that this was the true victory. Not just outsmarting Sebastian and Trina, but becoming a family in the fullest sense. We were stronger, more united, and ready for whatever lay ahead. The echoes of past conflicts faded into the background, and we embraced the harmony we had worked so hard to achieve. Ruth's wisdom and courage had led us through the darkest times, and now in the light, we found peace. And in that peace, we carved out a future together, one that Sebastian and Trina could never touch. "I thought you were cleverer, Eva, marrying Michael. Guess you're just another gullible woman." I tightened my grip on the checkbook. "What do you mean, Ava?" Aaron took a step closer, an icy smirk on his face. "Enough. Hand over the checkbook now, or we finalize the divorce." "You have no idea what you're starting here," I spat back, feeling my pulse quicken. With a dismissive chuckle, he shrugged. "We'll see about that." 5 years. That's how long it's been since Michael's accident. Aaron, Michael's best friend, was there from the start, supporting me through the grief. A year after Michael died, I remarried. Aaron seemed like a lifesaver, stepping in just when I needed someone. I convinced myself that he loved me. But now, with his demanding eyes locked on the checkbook, I saw it all clearly. The subtle lies, the mounting demands. Aaron was never in this for love. He wanted control, and I had let him weave his web around me. I handed over the checkbook slowly, watching Aaron's triumphant smile. Inside, I was boiling over, but outside I maintained my calm. Aaron flipped through, checking the entries. "Good. Now let's talk about the account changes I've been considering for us. There it was again, that word us, but every time he said it, I felt more like a pawn than a partner. I didn't respond immediately, letting the tension linger. Michael would have been smarter about this, you know, he added, his eyes not meeting mine. Those words hit like a punch to the stomach. Michael, always the comparison. Taking a deep breath, I willed my voice to stay steady. What exactly did you have in mind, Aaron? Just some reallocations, some investments. You'll be fine with it, he said, pocketing the checkbook. Investments. Right, for his mother's medical bills are more likely to continue his string of lavish purchases. What had happened to the man I thought I knew? Aaron, we need to talk. Seriously. I was losing my patience. This isn't working. He raised an eyebrow. Oh, it's working just fine for me. I couldn't hold back any longer. No, it's not, Aaron. You spend money like water. You're never home, and when you are, you're unbearable. This isn't a marriage. It's a transaction. You're draining me dry. Aaron's face twisted, his charming facade shattered. You think you can threaten me? You don't want this getting uglier than it already is. I took a step back, stunned by the venom in his voice. Are you threatening me? Just giving you a reality check, he said, voice low and menacing. Hand over the life insurance money, get ready for a nasty fight. It was in that moment I understood the full depth of his deceit. No more pretending, no more lies. With every word he spoke, he made my resolve stronger. I would outsmart him. Aaron didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. I'd do whatever it took to secure my life from him. He might think he's in control, but that was about to change. The first few months with Aaron were like a dream. We redecorated the house together, planned weekend getaways, and cooked dinner side by side. I began to believe that love had found me again. But gradually things shifted. Aaron started coming home late. At first he had excuses about meetings running over and work piling up. Then the reasons became vaguer. I stayed up waiting, but the silence was the loudest answer I got. One evening I confronted him as he walked in after midnight. Aaron, we need to talk. What's going on? Why are you always late? He shrugged, a hint of annoyance in his eyes. I've told you, Eva, work has been busy. Every night? Yes, every night. His voice rose, and for a moment I saw a stranger standing there. Why can't you understand? I'm doing this for us. I wanted to believe him, but his words felt hollow. The tension over money began soon after. Aaron demanded more allowance, explaining it was for his sick mother. I agreed without questioning, until I noticed the credit card statements. Expensive dinners, nightclubs, casinos. He wasn't helping his mother. He was enjoying himself. Aaron, I said, showing him the bills one morning. These charges don't seem right. We can't afford this lifestyle. He snatched the papers from my hand. I know what I'm doing, Eva. Mind your own business. But this is our money, I protested. We need to be responsible. Responsible, tearing the papers in half. You think you can lecture me about responsibility? You were the one sobbing over Michael's death. I'm the one keeping this house together. I bit my lip, anger welling up. Since when is wasting money responsible? Aaron's face darkened. You don't get it, do you? I'm done explaining myself. His attitude grew colder, his absences longer. The man I thought cared about me was fading, replaced by someone I barely knew. One night I returned home to find the living room lights dimmed. Aaron was at my laptop, fingers flying over the keyboard. What are you doing? I demanded. Just managing our finances, he replied, not looking up. On my private account? I stepped closer, fury boiling over. Get out of there, now! He finally turned to face me, eyes narrowing. You think you're smart hiding money from me? Well, think again. I have every right to be here. You have no right to access my private accounts. We're married, Eva. Everything you have is mine, too. No, Aaron, that's not how it works. You're crossing a line. Give me the life insurance money from Michael's passing, or it's over. Your choice. His words were a slap in the face. I knew I couldn't trust him. That night, as Aaron slept soundly, I lay awake, plotting my next move. I'd protect myself and my future. There was no running from this now. I would outsmart him, and he wouldn't see it coming. I started working part-time at a local bookstore. It wasn't much, but every dollar mattered now. Aaron had drained our accounts to the point we were barely making ends meet. He spent more time out than in, and I knew I needed a backup plan. When Aaron wasn't home, my mind raced. I stashed bits of my earnings into a secret bank account he didn't know about. It was risky, but it gave me some control, a small fragment of hope. One evening, I got home from work, tired but satisfied. As I entered the house, I noticed the eerie silence. Aaron's car was in the driveway, yet the house felt empty. I went straight to my desk and gasped. Aaron was there, logged into my bank account. "What are you doing?" I asked, my heart hammering in my chest. He didn't even flinch. "I'm managing our money." "You're reckless, Eva. You need guidance." "You can't just take control of my account." I moved closer, trying to pull the laptop away. "Your account?" He sneered, gripping the sides of the laptop. "We're married. What's yours is mine." I yanked the laptop out of his hands. "Enough, Aaron. You're not getting your hands on this money. It was Michael's insurance payout, for God's sake." "Michael's dead," he spat back, venom in his voice. "And if you don't watch it, you'll regret it. Divorce, Eva. Think about it." "I have thought about it," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "And maybe that's exactly what I want." Aaron laughed, stepping back. "Go ahead, Eva, but remember, I'll take every last cent. You think the courts will side with you? You're nothing without me." Shaken, I watched as he stormed out. My heart ached with a mixture of fear and anger. That night, I made a decision. Aaron wouldn't get another cent from me. I had to protect myself, and I had to do it now. The next morning, I visited the bank. "I need to change my account details," I told the teller, hands trembling. "New passwords, everything." The teller nodded, helping me secure my money. Leaving the bank, I felt a surge of resolve. When I got home, Aaron was lounging on the couch, scrolling through his phone. He looked up, noticing the determination in my eyes. "What are you up to now, Eva?" "Just making sure you don't steal any more from me," he smirked. "Good luck with that. You can't outsmart me." But I knew I could. I pretended to comply with his wishes, all while closing the gaps. I packed a bag with essentials and a few precious memories of Michael. Then I called Jessie, my trusted friend. "I need a place to stay, Jess," I said, desperation in my voice. "Come over, Eva. We'll figure this out together." Leaving Aaron behind, I drove to Jessie's house, the weight of uncertainty lifting with every mile. This was only the beginning. I was ready to fight back, and Aaron was about to learn just how strong I could be. At Jessie's house, I finally felt a sense of safety. Jessie welcomed me with open arms. "Stay as long as you need, Eva. You know I've got your back." "Thanks, Jess," I said, setting my bag down. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "We'll get through this," she assured me, patting my shoulder. "Let's get you settled." For the first time in months, I slept soundly. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. "I need to contact my lawyer," I told Jessie over breakfast. "Good idea. Cover all your bases." She nodded. "And what about Aaron?" I sighed. "He's not backing down. I need to be careful." Jessie handed me her phone. "Call your lawyer now. The sooner you start the process, the better." I dialed the number and explained my situation. I need to initiate divorce proceedings, and I need to protect my assets. "Understood," my lawyer said. "We'll start the paperwork. Make sure Aaron has no access to your accounts." "Already done," I replied, feeling a bit more secure. "And I'll need to notify the authorities. Aaron's threats are escalating." "Keep records of everything he says or does," the lawyer advised. "It'll help your case." After ending the call, I felt a sense of purpose. Jessie and I put together all the documentation, organized my finances, and ensured that Aaron couldn't touch a dime. As the days went by, Aaron became more desperate. He called repeatedly, leaving angry voicemails. "Eva, you can't run forever. Come back now, or you'll regret it." I saved every message, each one a piece of evidence. One evening, I received an email notification. Aaron had attempted to access our joint account, but was denied. His frustration was palpable even through the screen. "What's the next step?" Jessie asked, seeing the look on my face. "Divorce papers," I said firmly. "He needs to know I'm serious." Sending those papers felt like lifting a weight off my shoulders. I knew Aaron would be furious, but it was a necessary step. A few days later, Jessie and I were sitting together when my phone buzzed. It was Aaron. I answered, putting it on speaker. "You think you're smart, don't you? Sending those papers?" He was livid. "I'm protecting myself, Aaron," I replied calmly. "This is over." "No, it's not," he snapped. "You'll pay for this, I swear." "We'll see," I said and hung up. Jessie looked at me, concerned. "He'll get desperate now, Eva. Be prepared." "I am," I assured her. "I have to be." A sense of calm settled over me. I was taking control, no longer a victim to Aaron's games. Each step I took solidified my resolve. With Jesse's support, I began the process of revoking Aaron's access to everything connected to me. I changed locks, updated passwords, and informed everyone involved about the situation. Aaron's courage crumbled slowly but surely. He found himself cut off, no longer able to manipulate or control me. I watched from a distance as his fake facade started to fall apart, revealing the true coward behind the mask. I knew the ultimate face-off was coming, but until then, I kept my defenses strong, prepared for whatever Aaron had left in his arsenal. This was only the beginning, and I was ready for the fight. Aaron's arrogance boiled over when he realized I had sealed off all his access to the finances. One evening, as Jesse and I were catching up on the latest details, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello?" I answered tentatively. "You think you've won, Eva?" Aaron's voice was seething with anger. "You've just made the biggest mistake of your life." "That's your opinion," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "What do you want, Aaron?" "I want what's mine, and you will give it to me," he hissed. "You're not getting anything, Aaron. It's over." I hung up, feeling a mixture of fear and strength. Jessie looked at me, concern in her eyes. "He's not going to give up easily, Eva. Be careful." "I know," I sighed, "but I'm ready." The next day, I decided to take more decisive action. I went to the local police station to explain my situation. Officer James listened carefully, taking notes. "Based on what you've told me, we can file a restraining order against him," he said, handing me the paperwork. "It won't stop his calls, but it might make him think twice before showing up." "Thank you," I said, filling out the forms. "This means a lot." Returning to Jesse's place, I felt a little more secure. That evening, Jesse and I were having dinner when there was a loud knock at the door. Jesse peeked through the window and turned pale. "It's Aaron and his mother, Lydia." "Open up, Eva," Aaron shouted from outside. "We need to talk." I stood my ground. "Go away, Aaron. You have no right to be here." Lydia's voice cut through the air. "You'll regret this, Eva. We've done nothing wrong." "You've done plenty wrong," I snapped back. "Leave or I'll call the police." Aaron pounded on the door harder. "You can't hide forever." With shaky hands, I dialed 911. "There's a man at my door threatening me. I have a restraining order against him." "We're on our way," the dispatcher assured me. I hung up and glared at the door. "You're making this worse for yourself, Aaron." Minutes later, the police arrived. Officers led a furious Aaron and a downcast Lydia away. Aaron's final words, "This isn't over," echoed as they drove off. Jesse hugged me tightly. "You did the right thing, Eva. Stay strong." The next morning, I sent the divorce papers through certified mail, ensuring Aaron's access to everything connected to me was revoked. I needed to make sure he understood there was no way back. Later that week, Lydia's car was gone from Aaron's driveway. Word had spread quickly about their confrontation with the police. Jesse and I sat in the living room, a sense of relief washing over me. "It's not going to be easy, but I think we've turned a corner," I said. "You've got this, Eva," Jesse reassured me. "You're stronger than you know." I nodded, the weight of uncertainty lifting. The storm was far from over, but for the first time in a long while I felt ready to face it head-on. Every step forward was a step away from Aaron's toxic grip. The ultimate showdown was on the horizon, and I was prepared to win. A few days after the police escorted Aaron and Lydia away, I returned to work at the bookstore, hoping for a sense of normalcy. It was a quiet afternoon when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Jesse. "Aaron and Lydia here now. Be careful." My heart pounded. Moments later, the bell above the shop's door jingled, and they stormed in. Aaron's eyes were cold, and Lydia's face was twisted with anger. "You can't run, Eva," Aaron said, striding towards the counter. "You think you can just cut me off and hide?" I stood my ground. "This is not your place, Aaron. Leave, or I'll call the police again." Lydia slammed her hand on the counter. "You're making a mistake. You think you're so clever, but you'll lose everything." I clenched my fists. "Get out, now." "We had a deal, Eva," Aaron sneered, leaning closer. "You agreed to share everything, but you've gone behind my back." "No, Aaron, you broke our trust," I shot back. "You lied and manipulated me. Now you're facing the consequences." "Consequences?" Lydia spat. "You'll regret dragging my family through the mud. You have no proof of anything." I looked her in the eye. "I have more than enough proof. You impersonated me at the bank, committed fraud. You and Aaron will pay for this. Aaron's face twisted with rage. You don't scare us, Eva. We can ruin you. I held up my phone, recording their every word. Say all you want, but this is going to the authorities. You'll pay for everything you've done. The door pushed open and my boss, Mr. Reed, stepped in. He took one look at the scene and approached. Is there a problem here? These people were just leaving, I said firmly, glaring at Aaron and Lydia. Aaron let out a bitter laugh. You haven't heard the last of this. Lydia added, You made the wrong enemies, Eva. Mr. Reed folded his arms, towering over them. You heard her. Leave now, or I'm calling the police. Aaron and Lydia stormed out, muttering curses under their breath. I sagged against the counter, relief flooding through me. You okay? Mr. Reed asked, concern in his eyes. Thank you, I said, taking a deep breath. I'm fine. Just some unresolved issues. He nodded. If they come back, don't hesitate to call for help. I watched as Aaron and Lydia sped away, their threats ringing in my ears. But I wasn't afraid anymore. Their desperation was clear. It only made me stronger. That evening, I met with my lawyer and handed over the latest evidence. They showed up at my workplace, made threats. I recorded it all, I explained. He nodded, a grim smile on his face. This strengthens our case. We'll bring everything to light in court. Leaving his office, I felt a renewed sense of determination. I was ready for the next step. Aaron and Lydia had tried to intimidate me, but they were the ones who would pay dearly. As I drove back to Jessie's, my phone rang. It was her. Everything okay, Eva? Yeah, everything's fine. Just had a run-in with Aaron and Lydia at work, but we're moving forward. Good, Jessie said. Stay strong. You're almost there. I will, I promised, feeling the weight of her support. The ultimate showdown loomed on the horizon, and I knew I wouldn't face it alone. The fight for justice and peace had only just begun, but I was more than ready to see it through. The courtroom was packed. Aaron and Lydia sat across from me, their eyes burning with indignation. This was it, the moment of truth. My lawyer, Mr. Carter, stood and presented our case. Your Honor, we have clear evidence of fraud and deceit committed by Aaron and Lydia against my client, Eva. They have manipulated finances, attempted illegal access to accounts, and made explicit threats. Aaron's lawyer tried to defend him. Your Honor, these accusations are exaggerated. Aaron was just managing shared finances, and any accusations of fraud are unfounded. Unfounded? Mr. Carter countered, handing over the recording. This recording, taken by Eva, explicitly captures Aaron and Lydia's threats and admissions of their actions. The judge leaned forward, listening intently. Aaron's face fell as his own voice echoed through the courtroom, spouting hate and threats. Lydia's expression turned cold, realization dawning on her. Enough, the judge said, raising a hand. Turning to Aaron and Lydia, he continued, I have heard enough to make my decision. Aaron looked panicked. Your Honor, I was under a lot of stress. I didn't mean those things. It's too late for excuses, the judge replied sternly. The evidence is clear. You have committed fraud and shown a clear pattern of manipulation and abuse. Lydia stood up, desperation in her eyes. Please, Your Honor, we didn't mean any harm. Sit down, the judge commanded, and Lydia obeyed, her face ashen. The judge's gavel came down with a sense of finality. Aaron and Lydia are to repay the misappropriated funds and will face legal consequences for their fraudulent actions. I breathed a sigh of relief. It was over. Justice had been served. Aaron's face crumbled, tears of anger and disbelief streaming down his cheeks. Lydia looked defeated, her plans falling apart before her eyes. Outside the courthouse, Mr. Carter gave me a reassuring smile. You did well, Eva. This is a significant victory. Thank you, I said, feeling the weight lift off my shoulders. Now you need to focus on rebuilding your life, Mr. Carter advised. You've shown incredible strength. Walking away from the courthouse, I saw Aaron being led away, handcuffed. He caught my eye, his rage clear. You haven't seen the last of me, he growled. I didn't reply, just kept walking. His power over me was gone. That evening, Jessie and I celebrated quietly. To new beginnings, she toasted. To freedom, I echoed, clinking glasses. Aaron's downfall was public and complete. He lost his job, his reputation, and now faced a significant financial penalty. Lydia withdrew into isolation, her social standing tarnished beyond repair. My life was far from perfect, but I felt hopeful for the first time in years. The storm had passed, leaving behind the wreckage of Aaron's deceit. I was ready to rebuild, stronger and wiser than before. As I went to bed that night, I couldn't help but smile. The fight was over. The battle won. And while Aaron and Lydia faced the consequences of their actions, I had reclaimed my life. The scars would heal, and with each passing day, I would find peace and strength anew. The weeks after the court ruling were a whirlwind. Life slowly started to piece itself back together. I stabilized my job at the bookstore, dived into work, and found solace in the daily routine. Jessie remained my rock, always there with a reassuring word or a comforting hug. One afternoon, while shelving some books, a soft-spoken voice interrupted my thoughts. "Excuse me, could you help me find The Great Gatsby?" I turned to see a tall man with gentle eyes and a warm smile. "Sure, it's just over here," I said, leading him to the classics section. "Thank you," he said, looking thoughtfully at the books. "I'm Patrick, by the way." "Eva," I replied, shaking his hand. "Do you need help with anything else?" Patrick smiled. "Just looking for something good to read. Any recommendations?" We spent the next few minutes talking about books. There was something calming about him, an air of genuine kindness I hadn't experienced in a long time. Over the coming weeks, Patrick became a regular customer, and then a friend. One evening, as I closed the store, Patrick waited outside. "Care for a coffee?" he asked, a hopeful expression on his face. "Sure." I nodded, feeling a nervous excitement. At the cafe, the conversation flowed easily. Patrick shared his love for literature, his adventures as a travel writer. I listened, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in years. "Eva, you're amazing," Patrick said, his eyes sincere. "You've been through so much, yet here you are, standing strong." I smiled, blushing slightly. "It hasn't been easy, but I've had good friends to help me." He reached across the table, gently squeezing my hand. "I'd like to be one of those friends, if you'll let me." We continued to see each other, slowly building a bond. Patrick was careful, gentle, never pushing, always respectful. It was refreshing, a stark contrast to the chaos Aaron had brought into my life. One afternoon, while sorting through some old photos, I found a picture of Michael. Tears welled up in my eyes. Jessie, noticing my distress, sat beside me. "It's okay to remember, Eva," she said softly. "It's part of healing." "Michael was my safe place," I whispered. "I miss him every day, and it's okay to miss him," Jessie said. "But you deserve happiness, too." It was as if a weight had lifted. The memories of Michael would always be a part of me, but they didn't have to anchor me to the past. They could live alongside new memories, new happiness. Months went by, and Patrick stayed by my side. One day, as we walked through the park, he stopped and looked at me. "Eva, I care deeply for you. Will you let me be a part of your life?" It was a big step, but I felt ready. "Yes, Patrick, I'd like that." In that moment, I realized I had regained control of my life. Aaron's shadow no longer loomed over me. He faced the consequences of his actions, a stark contrast to the bright, hopeful future I was beginning to see. Patrick and I took things slow, building a relationship based on trust and care. I was mindful, ensuring not to repeat past mistakes. Each day felt like a new chapter, filled with cautious optimism and growing confidence. Eva's journey felt complete. From the darkness brought by Aaron, I had emerged stronger, resilient. With Patrick by my side, and Jessie always there to support me, I felt a sense of peace and hope. The storm had passed, and the future looked bright. In the end, it was not just about the revenge or the drama. It was about reclaiming my life, learning to trust again, and finding a balanced new beginning. And in that, I found my true strength. "You always were the disappointment, Ethan. This house was never meant for you and your little family. Pack your things and leave by the weekend. We don't need you here anymore." Adrian's voice, sharp and condescending, cut through the air. I stood outside the dining room, clutching the doorframe. My breath caught in my throat. Ethan had been pacing, his frustration evident. "I've put up with your arrogance and your endless criticisms for too long," Ethan shot back. "We'll leave, but mark my words, you'll regret this decision." The moment hung heavy in the air as the argument simmered down. My heart ached for Ethan. He had always strived to keep the family together, to fulfill his father's wish, but Adrian's return had shattered the fragile peace we had managed to maintain. As I stepped into the room, Ethan turned toward me, his face a blend of anger and sorrow. "Lila, we need to talk about what's next." Our life had turned upside down since we moved in. 3 months ago, Ethan's father, Harold, had called in a panic. His health was failing, and he needed support. Ethan, ever the dutiful son, agreed despite knowing how fraught the relationship with his mother and brother could be. "Do you remember how reluctant you were, Ethan?" I said softly, trying to offer some comfort. "You weren't sure about moving in, but Harold needed us. You did the right thing." Ethan sighed. "But at what cost, Lila? Adrian's back, and he's making our lives hell. Now we have to uproot our family again." We retreated to our bedroom, which Harold had kindly given us when we moved in. The worn walls and creaking floorboards had since become our little haven of sanity. "Maybe this is our chance to find a place of our own," I suggested, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Somewhere we can finally be at peace." Ethan nodded, though his worry was clear. "We have to think about Logan, too. He's had enough upheaval already. He just started at a new school." Logan, our 17-year-old son, had been adapting well despite everything, but the constant tension in the house wasn't fair to him. "We'll make it work," I said with conviction. "We've been through worse. We can get through this too." Dinner that night was tense. Fiona, our 82-year-old mother-in-law, was her usual stern self, but tried to make small talk. Harold, frail yet kind, only managed a few words, but his eyes spoke volumes of apology and understanding. Adrian sat smugly, as if he had already won. "Lila, could you pass the mashed potatoes?" Adrian's voice oozed mock politeness. I clenched the serving spoon, but handed it over. Ethan barely touched his food, his mind clearly elsewhere. Later, as we lay in bed, Ethan turned to me, determination in his eyes. "We'll pack up tomorrow and start looking for a new place first thing. We deserve a life free from all this." I squeezed his hand. Despite the turmoil, I believed in our ability to move forward. We had each other, and that was enough. Morning dawned, and the house was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the tension that had filled it the night before. Ethan and I started packing our things, prioritizing the essentials. Logan helped, his usual teenage grumbling absent. He knew the gravity of the situation. "Do you think we'll find something soon?" Logan asked, folding his clothes into a suitcase. "We will, Logan," Ethan replied firmly. "We'll find a place where we can be happy. This is just a bump in the road." As we boxed up the last of our belongings, Harold shuffled into the room, leaning heavily on his cane. "Are you sure about this, Ethan?" "There's no other way, Dad," Ethan said, his voice softening. "Adrian has made it clear we're not welcome here." Harold's eyes grew misty. "Your mother? She favors Adrian, but I never wanted this. I'm sorry things turned out this way." I placed a hand on Harold's arm. "We know, Harold, you've always been kind to us." By midday, Adrian had made his presence known, sauntering into the room with a smug look on his face. "Need any help moving out faster?" he sneered. Ethan straightened, his fists clenching. "We're handling it, Adrian. Don't worry about us." Adrian laughed. "Oh, I'm not worried, just making sure you don't overstay your welcome." My jaw tightened, but I held my tongue. There was no point in engaging with him. By evening, Ethan's mother, Fiona, appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of indifference. "Dinner's ready," she said curtly. "You might as well eat before you go." The dining room felt colder than usual. Fiona and Adrian seemed to carry on as if nothing had happened, while Harold remained silent, his sadness palpable. We ate quickly, wanting to get the meal over with. "Mom, could you stop pretending everything is fine?" Logan suddenly spoke up, his frustration boiling over. "This isn't fair." Fiona glanced at him, her lips pursed. "Life isn't always fair, Logan. You'll understand when you're older." Ethan pushed his plate away and stood up. "Enough. We're done here. We'll be gone by morning." He turned to Harold. "Dad, take care. We'll keep in touch." Harold nodded sadly. "Take care, son." We finished packing in silence, the heaviness of the situation wrapping around us like a shroud. As night fell, we squeezed into Logan's small room, sleeping on mattresses on the floor. Ethan's voice broke the quiet. "Tomorrow, we'll find our new beginning. Remember, Lila, we're stronger together." I nodded in the dark, taking solace in his words. No matter what Adrian or Fiona threw our way, we would face it head on. Our family's bond was unbreakable, and that was more than enough. We arranged a moving van early the next morning and loaded our belongings with a mix of urgency and relief. Ethan arranged for a storage unit while we began our search for a new home. Logan, though visibly weary, kept his spirits high, cracking jokes to lighten the mood. Once we finished, we stood in the driveway, looking at the house one last time. Harold sat on the porch, watching us with a mournful expression. Fiona and Adrian were nowhere to be seen. "Take care of yourself, Dad," Ethan called out. Harold nodded, giving a small wave. "You too, son. Stay strong." We drove away, leaving behind the web of spite and manipulation. Within hours, we were checking out rental properties, hopeful that a fresh start was around the corner. Meanwhile, back at the house, Adrian began tightening his grip. He demanded the best meals, barking orders at Fiona, and treating Harold like a nuisance. Fiona's earlier coldness towards us was now thawed by Adrian's escalating arrogance, and she grew weary of her once-favored son. By the end of the day, Adrian's demands had only increased. "Why can't you keep up, Mom? Is it that hard to make a decent meal around here?" Fiona sighed, her patience wearing thin. "I'm doing my best, Adrian. Maybe you should help out instead of just criticizing." Adrian scoffed. "Help out? That's not my job, Mom. That's what you're here for." Harold, watching the growing tension, finally spoke up. "Adrian, this isn't right. We need to work together, not tear each other apart." Adrian shrugged off his father's words, continuing his tirade without a care in the world. Back in town, we found a modest house that seemed promising. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. As we began to settle in, Ethan's phone rang. He frowned at the screen. "It's Mom." "Are you going to answer?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. He hesitated, then picked up. "Hello, Mom." Fiona's voice was shaky. "Ethan, I need your help." Adrian's, "Not what I imagined. He's too demanding." Ethan's expression hardened. "You made your choice, Mom. You pushed us out." "I know, Ethan, but Harold's health is getting worse, and I can't manage everything," she pleaded. Ethan looked at me, seeking my input. I shook my head, firm in my resolve. "We can't save everyone, Ethan, and we need to focus on us." He relayed the message to Fiona. "I'm sorry, Mom, but we can't come back. We have to think about our family now." Fiona's sigh was filled with regret. "I understand." As we ended the call, I hugged Ethan tightly. We did the right thing. They need to face the consequences of their actions. Ethan nodded, his eyes resolute. We have our own lives to rebuild. No more looking back. And with that, we began piecing together the fragments of our new life, basking in the freedom and opportunities ahead, all the while knowing that karma had its own way of setting things right. We settled into our new place quickly. It wasn't luxurious, but it was ours, and that was all that mattered. As we unpacked, the tension began to lift. Logan seemed happier, and Ethan's shoulders were slightly less hunched. Just as we started to feel at home, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Adrian standing there, his face twisted in a smug grin. "What do you want, Adrian?" I asked, barely keeping my composure. Adrian pushed past me into the living room. "I've come to see if you're settling in well. Wanted to check up on my little brother and his lovely family." Ethan came out from the kitchen, his eyes narrowing. "Get out, Adrian. You're not welcome here." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Is that any way to greet family? I just wanted to see how you're doing." "We're doing fine, no thanks to you," Ethan snapped. "You have no business being here." Adrian chuckled darkly. "Oh, but I do. You see, Mom and Dad are struggling without your help. It's quite entertaining to watch." My blood boiled. "How can you be so heartless? They're your parents." Adrian shrugged. "They made their bed. Isn't that what you always say, Lila?" Ethan stepped forward, his jaw clenched. "You've said what you came to say, now leave." Adrian looked around, feigning disappointment. "Such a pity. I was hoping for a cozy family reunion. But fine, I'll go for now. Remember, Ethan, you can run, but you can't hide from family responsibilities." With a final smirk, Adrian sauntered out, leaving a trail of tension in his wake. I turned to Ethan, my hands trembling. "We can't let him get to us. We need to focus on us, remember?" Ethan nodded, but the fire in his eyes was undeniable. "He's not going to ruin this for us, Lila, I promise." Days turned into weeks, and we found our rhythm. Meanwhile, reports from Fiona trickled in. It seemed Adrian's return had only added to their troubles. Harold's health was worsening, and Fiona found herself overwhelmed by Adrian's increasing demands and lack of support. One evening, the phone rang again. This time it was Harold. Ethan's face softened as he answered. "Dad, are you okay?" Harold's voice was weak but determined. "Ethan, I need to see you. Things are bad here. Adrian is unbearable. Your mother can't cope." Ethan's resolve wavered, but he looked at me and I shook my head. "We can bring Dad here, but we're not going back," I said firmly. Ethan relayed the message. "Dad, pack your things. You're coming to stay with us." Harold's relief was apparent. "Thank you, son. I don't know how much longer I could have lasted there. Hanging up, Ethan sighed. It's the right thing to do, Lila. We'll make it work. I took his hand. We're stronger together. We'll get through this. The next few days were a whirlwind as we prepared to bring Harold to our home. Despite the challenges, we held on to the belief that, together, we could face anything, and that, in time, Adrian and Fiona would reap the consequences of their own actions. The day Harold moved in with us marked a significant shift. His presence brought a mix of relief and underlying tension. We rearranged the small living room to accommodate his needs, determined to make him as comfortable as possible. "Thank you for taking me in," Harold said, settling into the recliner we had bought for him. "Your family," Ethan replied. "We look out for each other." As days passed, we fell into a routine. Harold's gentle demeanor contrasted sharply with Fiona's demanding nature and Adrian's arrogance, making it clear why Ethan felt so conflicted about leaving them behind. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Harold broke the silence. "I never wanted it to come to this. Adrian's behavior, it's inexcusable. Fiona, well, she's always had a blind spot for him." Ethan's face hardened. "Dad, we all make choices. I just wish Mom had seen the truth sooner." Harold nodded, sorrow etched on his features. "I hope she realizes it soon. Adrian's already caused too much damage." The phone rang, cutting through the moment. I answered, my stomach nodding at the sound of Fiona's voice. "Lila, it's Fiona. I need to talk to Ethan." I handed the phone over, mouthing, "It's his mom," to Ethan. He took it, leaning against the counter. "Mom? What is it?" Fiona's voice was strained. "Ethan, I need your help. Adrian's behavior is out of control. He's draining our finances and refuses to help with anything. I don't know what to do." Ethan took a deep breath. "Mom, we've heard about Adrian's actions, but you chose to support him over us. We can't keep fixing your mistakes." "But Ethan, I'm desperate," Fiona pleaded. "Harold's not there, and I can't manage alone." Ethan's face was set in stone. "We're taking care of Dad because it's the right thing to do. But we can't rescue you from the choices you made. You need to figure this out." Tears welled in Fiona's voice. "Please, Ethan, I can't do this alone." Ethan's resolve showed no cracks. "You have Adrian, Mom. He's your son, too." He hung up, exhaling deeply. "We have our own lives to lead, Lila. We can't keep getting drawn back." The next morning, as Harold and I sat on the porch, he looked at me with a sad smile. "You've given me a second chance at peace, Lila. No matter what Fiona says or does, you've done more than enough." I squeezed his hand. "We're just glad you're here with us." Later, Ethan took Logan out for some father-son time, while Harold and I enjoyed the quiet. The weight of the situation still lingered, but amidst it all there was a sense of newfound hope and determination. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over our small newfound sanctuary, we felt a glimmer of the future, one free from the past's relentless grip. In those quiet moments, we knew that, despite the chaos behind us, we were forging a path forward stronger than ever before. Life in our new home settled into a calm, manageable routine. Harold's presence was a constant reminder of the past, yet also a testament to the strength of our family. He found peace in the simple joys, afternoon walks with Logan, quiet meals together, and watching old westerns in the evenings. One afternoon, while I was preparing dinner, the phone rang. I answered, recognizing Fiona's strained voice on the other end. "Lila, I need to speak with Ethan. It's important." I handed the phone to Ethan, who took it with a look of resignation. "Mom, what is it now?" Fiona's voice wavered. "Ethan, Adrian's situation has gotten worse. His scandals hit the news, and he's lost his job. He's threatening to leave, and we're on the brink of losing the house. I don't know who else to turn to." Ethan's face was unreadable. "Mom, we warned you about Adrian, but you chose to ignore us. Now you want us to clean up his mess again?" "There's no one else, Ethan. Please, we need help." Fiona's voice cracked. Ethan took a long, deep breath. "We'll think about what we can do, but don't expect everything to go back to the way it was." He hung up and sat down heavily, looking at me. "Adrian's finally facing the consequences of his actions. Fiona wants our help, but I'm not sure what we can or should do." I placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We've done our best to help. We need to protect our family now." As the days passed, Fiona's calls became more desperate. Adrian's downfall was public, and his wife had left him, taking what little they had left. The once confident brother now found himself at the mercy of the same parents he'd so easily disregarded when things were good. One evening, while Logan was out with friends, we gathered in the living room. Ethan broke the silence. "I've decided we'll help Dad move in with us permanently. We can't do more than that." Harold nodded, looking relieved. "I never wanted to be a burden. I just want peace in my last years." The next morning, Fiona called again, her voice heavy with resignation. "Ethan, I know I've made mistakes and I've favored Adrian unfairly, but please, understand, we're desperate." Ethan was firm yet kind. "I'm sorry, Mom, but Dad's welcome here. As for you and Adrian, you need to find your own way. We can't save you from the choices you made." Fiona's sobs echoed through the phone. "I understand. Thank you, Ethan." She hung up, leaving a weight in the air. As we helped Harold settle further into our home, the reality of our decisions sunk in. We had chosen the path that protected our family, though it left Fiona and Adrian to contend with their actions alone. In the end, we found solace in knowing we had done right by those who deserved it, and that, sometimes, life's harshest lessons had to be learned the hard way. Our newfound peace, earned through hardship, was the beginning of a brighter, more hopeful future. The air was crisp as we prepared breakfast that Sunday morning. I could sense a shift in Harold's demeanor. He seemed more content, more at peace. The house, now marked by quiet resilience, felt like a safe haven. As we gathered around the table, Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then looked up at us. "It's Fiona again." "Should I answer?" I nodded. "It's better to know what's happening," Ethan answered, his voice careful. "Hi, Mom." Fiona sounded tired and defeated. "Ethan, I understand your decision. I just wanted you to know that Adrian left. He took what he could and disappeared. We're losing the house." Ethan was silent for a moment. "I'm sorry, Mom. I hope you find a way to get through this. Maybe reach out for some external help." Fiona sighed. "I'm trying, Ethan. I'm trying to make sense of everything." After the call, we ate in silence. Harold finally broke it. "You did what you had to do, son. Don't ever doubt that." Ethan nodded. "I know, Dad. It's just complicated." Later that day, as Ethan and I sat in the living room, Logan came home from playing basketball. He threw his bag down and flopped onto the couch. "Dad, are Grandma and Uncle Adrian okay?" Ethan hesitated. "They're going through a tough time, Logan, but we've done all that we can." Logan nodded, his young face already showing signs of understanding life's complexities. "I hope they figure things out. But I'm glad Grandpa is with us." Days turned into weeks, and our lives settled into a peaceful rhythm. One evening, an unexpected visitor knocked on our door. Ethan opened it to find a disheveled Adrian standing there. "What do you want, Adrian?" Ethan's voice was cold, filled with the history of betrayal. Adrian looked desperate. "I need a place to stay, Ethan. Everything fell apart. I have nowhere else to go." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You put yourself in that position. We won't let you bring your chaos here." Adrian's eyes darted around, looking for a way in. "Please, Ethan. I've lost everything. I'm your brother." "No, Adrian," Ethan replied firmly. "You are reaping what you sowed. Leave." Adrian lingered, but the door was shut firmly in his face. Inside, Harold nodded approvingly. "Sometimes, tough love is the only way." As we settled into a movie that evening, the weight of our decisions felt lighter. The consequences of Adrian's actions were his to bear alone. In the coming months, we experienced a sense of peace and stability that had long eluded us. Logan excelled in school, and I found joy in a part-time job at the local community center. One evening, as Logan prepared for a college visit, Harold looked around the dinner table and smiled. "It's good to see everyone thriving." Ethan squeezed my hand under the table. "We've come a long way and learned a lot. We're stronger than ever." We raised our glasses in a silent toast to the journey we had endured and to the bright, uncharted path that lay ahead. Though the scars of the past remained, they were overshadowed by the love and unity that now defined our family. The bright sun heralded a new beginning as we prepared Harold for Logan's college visit. Our excitement was palpable. Logan was thriving, and his acceptance into a prestigious college added joy to our lives. "Ready for the trip, Dad?" Ethan asked, helping Harold into the car. Harold smiled, his eyes twinkling. I wouldn't miss this for the world. The drive was filled with laughter and anticipation. Logan talked about his plans, and we shared our hopes for his future. As we approached the campus, Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "It's Mom again." "Do you want to answer?" I asked gently. Ethan's brows knitted together. I'll call her back later. Today is about Logan. We parked and began our tour of the beautiful campus. Logan's eyes sparkled with excitement, and Harold's enthusiasm was infectious. Watching Logan navigate through the possibilities reminded us why we had made the tough choices we did. By evening, we had checked into a cozy bed and breakfast. After a hearty dinner, as we settled into our rooms, Ethan finally returned Fiona's call. Ethan, thank you for calling back, Fiona's voice cracked, filled with exhaustion. Adrian, he's hit rock bottom. He's lost everything and has been arrested for fraud. I don't know what to do. Ethan took a deep breath. Mom, you need to reach out to the proper authorities and get some help. We've done everything we can. It's up to you and Adrian now. Fiona sobbed quietly. I understand. I just wish I'd seen things sooner. I'm so sorry, Ethan. Ethan clenched his jaw, then softened. It's in the past now. Focus on making things right. We can't fix this for you, but I hope you find the strength to move forward. After he hung up, Ethan sighed deeply. It's never easy, is it? I placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. No, but we're making the right decisions for our family. The next morning, we continued our tour. By lunchtime, Logan had already made a few friends and explored enough to feel confident in his choice. Harold beamed with pride, and Ethan looked more relaxed than he had in months. As we prepared to head back home, Harold spoke up. This visit, it's a reminder of what we've accomplished as a family. Logan's future is bright, and we've built something strong and enduring. I nodded, tears welling up. We've gone through so much, but it's brought us closer together. Ethan squeezed my hand. We'll keep moving forward. Together. The drive home was quieter, filled with reflections and hopes for the future. As we pulled into the driveway, it felt like returning to a sanctuary, a place we had fought for and earned. We helped Harold inside and settled back into our routine. The weight of the past had lifted, replaced by a sense of peace and anticipation for the future. That evening, we gathered around the dinner table once more. To new beginnings, Ethan said, raising his glass. To new beginnings, we echoed, clinking our glasses together. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over our home, I looked around at my family, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. We had faced the storm and emerged stronger, ready for whatever lay ahead. Decking out this room will be such a thrill, Mason chimed as he declared, staking his claim. You try to fuss, Ma, and you'll see me leaving you to fend for yourself. The cutting edge to his words caught me off guard. I had barely closed the front door of my modest home, where memories with my late husband lingered, when Mason began barking orders. Amber, his wife, stood in the corner, scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging me. Give it a rest, Amber. We're here now? Better make the best of it, Mason said, glancing in her direction. Amber sighed, putting her phone away. I shuffled into the living room, feeling the weight of my decision. My husband had passed away just a year ago, and now I'd agreed to let Mason and Amber move in. I expected support, companionship. I didn't expect this hostility. Nora, where do you keep the good plates? Amber asked wearily, walking into the kitchen. In the cabinet above the sink, I replied, trying to keep a positive tone. Why do you need them right now? Just checking. You know, we have friends over sometimes. Don't want them eating off these cheap ones, she said dismissively, picking up one of the plates from the drying rack and looking at it critically. I bit my tongue. I wanted to protest, but Mason gave me a look that froze the words in my throat. Amber, just leave it. We'll buy new plates if we need to, Mason said, as if I wasn't even there. The house might have been small, but it was filled with memories. Pictures of family holidays adorned the walls. I tried to remind myself that I had made this choice for the sake of family, but something in Mason's tone made me uneasy. It was late afternoon, and the sunlight streamed through the windows, casting long shadows on the worn carpet. I eyed the dining area, already imagining the arguments yet to come. My stomach turned at the thought. Mason, can we talk for a moment? I asked, trying to sound assertive. Sure, Ma. What's up? He responded with a fake warmth, following me into the hallway. Why the rush to claim your room? You said you needed help, and I let you move in. Show a little respect, please, I said, trying to maintain eye contact. He folded his arms, leaning against the wall. Respect? Ma, we're here to help you out, too. Don't forget that. I nodded, unwilling to argue further. I retreated to my bedroom seat, the only place where I felt I still had control. As I sat on the edge of my bed, I looked at the framed photo of my husband on the nightstand. His kind eyes seemed to offer me strength. Amber's voice floated down the hallway, interrupting my thoughts. "Mason, how about we order in tonight? I'm not in the mood to cook." "Fine by me," Mason replied, his voice indifferent. I felt a mixture of frustration and sadness. I hadn't anticipated how disruptive their presence would be. A few hours later, the house was filled with the aroma of takeout. I joined them at the table, where Mason and Amber were already eating. "Nora, do you want some?" Amber asked, not looking up from her food. "Sure," I responded, sitting down. "So, Ma, any interesting plans for tomorrow?" Mason asked between bites. "I was thinking of visiting the market, stock up on some fresh produce," I said, hoping he might engage in a real conversation. "Amber," he interrupted, clearly not paying attention to me, "we should go check out that furniture store you mentioned." "Yes, we need to update a few things around here," Amber said excitedly. I sighed, putting down my fork. I'd appreciate if we could discuss changes before jumping into them. "Ma, we'll take care of it, don't worry," Mason said dismissively, already looking back at his phone. I felt an unsettling chill. My home, once filled with love, now felt alien. This wasn't the beginning I had hoped for. The next few days passed in a blur of tension and biting comments. Every time Amber opened her mouth, it seemed to be to criticize or demand something new. Any attempt to create harmony was met with sneers and dismissive gestures. One evening, as I sorted through some old papers at the dining table, Mason walked in, rifling through the mail. "Bills, bills, and more bills. Do you ever not get these, Ma?" he muttered loudly. "They come with living in the house, Mason," I said patiently. "It's normal." "Well, you should try and cut down on your expenses. This is starting to get out of hand," he said, tossing the mail onto the table. His tone was sharp, lacking any hint of compassion. From the living room, Amber's voice carried through. "Mason, did you forget about tomorrow's payments? You promised to handle it." Yeah, I know," he called back. "What payments are those, Mason?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Nothing you need to worry about, Ma," he said dismissively. I glanced over the documents he'd thrown. My heart sank seeing how much more they'd spent than I realized. "Mason, could you contribute a bit to the household? Money is tight," I asked, my tone hopeful. Mason didn't even look up. Sorry, slipped my mind. I'll get on it next time," he said offhandedly. Amber walked in, her face twisted in disdain. "Honestly, this place is a nightmare. So old-fashioned and depressing. How did you ever live here, Nora?" I bit back a retort and offered a thin smile. "It's home, Amber. It has history." "Well, history doesn't pay the bills, now does it?" she snapped, rolling her eyes. She joined Mason, who was now scrolling through his phone. I sighed and returned to my papers. Something caught my eye, an unpaid bill that was unusually high. I made a mental note to investigate it further. I couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong. The next day, curiosity got the best of me. I quietly checked Mason's office while they were out. I found unopened bills and receipts everywhere, and many were marked with overdue notices. My pulse quickened. This mess had to be cleaned up. But more urgently, I needed answers. Later that evening, I confronted Mason and Amber when they returned. "Mason, we need to talk about these overdue bills," I said, holding up the pile of papers. His face hardened. "Ma, stay out of my business. We're handling it." "Handling it? This affects all of us," I retorted, my frustration bubbling over. Amber chimed in, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Maybe if you didn't spend on useless things, we wouldn't have a problem." "Useless? Everything I buy is for the house," I said, feeling anger rise. "Sure, keep telling yourself that," Amber said, tossing her hair back. I took a deep breath. "Mason, something isn't adding up. I need to know what's going on," I said more calmly. "Drop it, Ma," Mason said sternly. I said we'll take care of it. That night, I lay in bed wide awake. Their behavior, the financial discrepancies, it all felt wrong. I had to dig deeper. This had become more than just a family issue. It was a question of survival. Morning arrived, and as they left for their activities, I decided to visit Mason's workplace, a small tech startup. I needed to understand more. The office was a short drive away. When I walked in, Emily Harper, a young employee, greeted me. "Hi, can I help you?" she asked with a friendly smile. "I'm Nora, Mason's mom. Just thought I'd drop by and say hi." Emily's smile faded slightly. Oh, Mason didn't mention you'd be coming. He's out right now. I see. How is he doing here? I asked, trying to sound casual. She hesitated. He's been having some trouble. Deadlines, funds. He's under a lot of stress. I nodded, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. Thank you, Emily. Leaving the office, one thing was clear. Mason and Amber were hiding something. I was determined to find out what, no matter the cost. Mason, the internet is down again, Amber yelled from the living room. Can't you fix it? There was a crash as Mason kicked a chair. I'll deal with it later, Amber. He snapped. He stormed past me, not bothering to even look in my direction. Mornings had become a battleground. Amber's tantrums and Mason's temper made my once peaceful home feel like a war zone. It was clear they were frustrated, but their anger seemed to land squarely on me. I couldn't keep dealing with the hostility without some sort of escape, so I found a job at a local art supply store. The manager, Mrs. Harper, welcomed me with open arms. It felt good to be doing something useful for myself. One afternoon, while sorting brushes and paints, Mrs. Harper approached me. Nora, would you like to join our painting class this evening? I hesitated. I'm not sure if I'm any good. She smiled warmly. Everyone starts somewhere, plus we could use an extra set of hands. That evening, I joined the class, and for the first time in a while, I felt genuinely at peace. I may not have been very skilled, but losing myself in the strokes of the brush was therapeutic. Returning home later than usual, I walked in to find Mason and Amber arguing. Just do something useful for once, Mason shouted. Useful? I'm doing everything while your mother is out playing with paints, Amber retorted. I'm back, I said softly, hoping to diffuse the tension. Amber glared at me. Perfect timing. We're out of groceries. Why don't you make yourself useful, Nora? I felt a wave of anger rise but held it back. I'll take care of it in the morning, I said calmly. Make sure you do, Amber muttered. The next day, I did the shopping, making sure to get exactly what they liked, to avoid more complaints. At the checkout, a canvas caught my eye. I decided to buy it, hoping to continue painting at home. When I got back, Amber was sprawled on the couch. About time, she said as I walked in with the bags. I ignored her, placing the groceries on the counter. Later, as I set up my canvas in the spare bedroom, Mason walked in. What is this? He demanded, looking at the canvas. It's for painting, I said, trying to stay composed. With what money, Ma? Don't you get it? We're struggling to keep this place afloat, he yelled. I bought it with my own earnings from the store, I said firmly. Mason shook his head and walked out, mumbling something under his breath that I didn't catch. Over the next few weeks, painting became my refuge. My work at the store and the joy of painting helped balance the growing tension at home. One evening, Mrs. Harper approached me again. Nora, I've seen your paintings. They're quite good. Have you thought about selling them? She asked. I was stunned. I haven't. Do you really think they're worth selling? Yes, I do. We can start displaying them here at the store, she suggested. I nodded, feeling a spark of hope. Maybe this could be a way out of the bleakness at home. That night, as I served dinner, Amber sniped, Honestly, you're just a burden to everyone around, as an old woman who's of no use. I stopped, feeling the sting of her words, but I didn't respond. Instead, I went to my room, picked up my brush, and started painting. For every insult, I would channel it into my art. Soon, my paintings attracted attention. I made my first sale, then another. Each piece sold brought me a little more financial freedom and emotional strength. In secret, I started setting aside money, planning an escape if things worsened. Amber and Mason continued their rampage of entitlement. But now, I had something they couldn't touch, a sense of purpose and a path forward. And with every stroke of my brush, my resolve grew stronger. Selling one painting after another, I finally felt like I was contributing. But I kept my success a secret from Mason and Amber, knowing it would only cause more tension. The resentment in the house was growing thicker every day. One evening, while Amber was out, I found myself sitting with Mason over a rare shared meal. The silence was heavy, but I decided to break it. Mason, I've noticed financial discrepancies. Something doesn't add up, I said cautiously. Mason stiffened. I told you, I'm handling it. Stay out of it, Ma. But it's affecting all of us. You're not contributing, and Amber seems more interested in spending than saving. I pushed, my voice steady. He slammed his fork down. I said I'm handling it. I dropped the subject, knowing I wouldn't get anywhere with him tonight. Later, as I cleaned up, I I overheard a phone conversation from Mason's office that made my blood go cold. "I've transferred the funds. Just make sure the company doesn't catch on," Mason whispered urgently. Realizing the gravity of his words, I quietly moved away. I needed proof. Over the next week, I carefully recorded any conversations that hinted at their misdeeds, using my phone's recording feature. Amber was no better. She had brought home a stack of expensive clothing and jewelry. In a moment of carelessness, she'd left receipts lying around that showed she'd used funds from my account. I decided to confront her. "Amber, these expenditures on my account are unacceptable. How could you?" She looked at me with cold disdain. "Oh, Nora, stop acting like it's a big deal. I'll pay it back." "This is theft, Amber. I want the money back now," I insisted. She smirked. "What are you going to do about it, old woman?" My anger boiled over. This isn't over. Later that day, I took my recordings and receipts to a lawyer. The evidence was clear, and I was advised to start taking steps to secure my position. Secretly, I found a modest house to buy with the money I had saved from my paintings. It was small, but it was mine. The keys to the new house felt heavy in my pocket, a double-edged sword of freedom and fear. I still needed more proof to protect myself fully. That evening, Mason and Amber were out, and I seized the opportunity to dig deeper into Mason's office. Folders, emails, and files, everything pointed to him siphoning company funds. My chest tightened, realizing the depth of their betrayal. The next morning at breakfast, Amber looked over with a sneer. "And what do you plan to do with your pathetic little paintings, Nora? Buy yourself a coffin." I shot back. "I'm making enough to move out soon. You and Mason will have to fend for yourselves." Mason walked into the kitchen, hearing my last words. "What's this about moving out?" "I've had enough. You've both been deceitful and abusive. I've found a new place," I said with a newfound firmness. Mason's face hardened. "You think you're just going to leave us? We're your family." "Family? You've done nothing but take advantage of me," I countered, my voice shaking but strong. Amber's laughter was cold. "Good luck surviving on your own. You'll come crawling back." "We'll see about that," I replied, holding her gaze. As days went by, I finalized my purchase, ensuring everything was in order to move quickly. But I wasn't just leaving. I was setting the stage to expose them. One evening, I gathered all the evidence, Amber's fraudulent activities and Mason's misappropriation of company funds. I waited until they were both home. "Mason, Amber, we need to talk," I said tersely, holding up the folder of evidence. Amber rolled her eyes. "Another one of your lectures?" Mason's eyes narrowed. "What is it now?" I opened the folder and laid the documents on the table. "This is proof that you've both been stealing and cheating." Their faces drained of color. "Tomorrow I'm showing these to the authorities. My new house is ready, and you're not coming with me," I declared, my voice steady and strong. Their protests and threats echoed as I walked away, but I felt a weight lifted from my shoulders. This was just the beginning of my fight for justice, and I was ready. I spent the next few days preparing for the move, making sure everything was in place at the new house. I didn't tell Mason and Amber anything more about my plans, keeping my intentions under wraps. One morning, I packed the last of my belongings and left a note behind. It simply read, "Goodbye and good luck." I felt a mixture of relief and nervousness as I closed the door behind me. This was it. My new beginning. Arriving at my new house, I took a deep breath. It was smaller and simpler than my old home, but it felt like a sanctuary. I set up my art supplies in a corner of the living room, ready to dive into my painting again. A few hours later, there was a frantic knock at the door. I opened it to find Mason and Amber standing there, faces flushed with anger and panic. "You can't just leave. We need you," Mason shouted, his voice breaking. "This house is mine, and mine alone," I declared with a firmness that brooked no argument. Amber pushed past Mason, her eyes wild. "What are we supposed to do now? You can't abandon us," she spat. "I haven't abandoned you," I replied calmly. "You abandoned your responsibilities and proved you couldn't be trusted." Mason stepped forward, trying a different approach. "Please, Ma, let's just talk this through. We can work something out." "No, Mason. I'm done talking. I found out about the company funds you've been misappropriating," I said, watching his face pale. He started to bluster. "You don't understand. It's not what it looks like." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted. "And Amber, you've been draining my accounts for your own luxuries. Amber scoffed, crossing her arms. You really think you can survive without us? I stepped back, resolving to make my final stand. I am surviving without you. You underestimated me, and now you're going to face the consequences. With that, I shut the door on their stunned faces, locking it behind me. I heard them shout and pound on the door, but I ignored them. This was my new chapter, and they were no longer a part of it. The next day, I contacted the authorities and provided all the evidence I had gathered. It wasn't just about my money, it was about justice and finally standing up for myself. Mason and Amber showed up at my door once more, this time pleading and promising to change. Please, Ma, we're sorry. Just give us another chance, Mason begged. Amber nodded, tears streaming down her face. We need you. We can't do this without you. I shook my head, feeling a strange sense of calm. It's too late. You've already shown me who you are, and I deserve better. They left, defeated and broken. As they walked away, I felt a wave of emotions, relief, sadness, but more than anything, empowerment. In the weeks that followed, I focused on settling into my new life. My art continued to flourish, bringing in enough to comfortably support myself. Each day I felt stronger and more independent. Mason and Amber's betrayals were reported to the authorities, and they faced the consequences of their actions. It wasn't an easy battle, but it was one I was determined to see through. One evening, as I painted in the quiet of my new home, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. I had turned pain into purpose, anger into action, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a profound sense of peace. A knock on the door startled me out of my peaceful morning routine. I opened it to see Mason, looking more haggard than ever. He wasted no time pushing his way inside, eyes wild with desperation. What do you want, Mason? I asked, keeping my voice steady. We need to talk, Ma. You can't keep doing this to us, he pleaded, his tone urgent. Amber hovered near the door, her face etched with worry and anger. She stomped into the room, snapping, You think you can ruin our lives and just walk away? I walked to the kitchen counter, putting some distance between us. You ruined your own lives with your choices. I'm done suffering for them. Mason's composure cracked. This is all a misunderstanding. We're not the villains here. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Not the villains? You stole from me and your company, lied and manipulated. How are you the victim? Amber's face twisted horrifically. We took what we deserved. You owe us. I owe you. Look around, Amber. I worked hard for this house, my peace. You belittled and exploited me. I owe you nothing. Mason stepped closer, trying another tactic. Please, Ma, we can fix this. Just drop the charges and we'll pay you back. Drop the charges? This is bigger than repaying me. It's about accountability. You think you can swindle your way out of everything? I said, shaking my head. Amber's rage boiled over. You miserable, ungrateful hag. We did everything for you, and this is how you repay us? Everything for me? I shot back. You mean everything to benefit yourselves. I've seen your true colors. Now it's time for you to face the consequences. Mason collapsed onto the couch, holding his head in his hands. Please, Ma, don't do this. We need help. We can't make it without you. And I needed respect, dignity, and honesty. But you didn't think of that, did you? I sighed, feeling the weight of the years of manipulation lift. At that moment, the doorbell rang again. I opened it to find 2 police officers standing there. Are you Nora Collins? One of them asked. Yes, I am, I replied, stepping aside to let them in. Amber's eyes widened in horror. No, this can't be happening. You can't let them take us. The officers stepped forward, addressing Mason and Amber. Mason Collins, Amber Davis, you are under arrest for fraud and embezzlement. Mason's face turned a ghostly white. Ma, do something! Talk to them, he begged as he was handcuffed. Amber screamed, thrashing as they restrained her. You can't do this! We're family! I watched silently as the officers led them away, their protests echoing down the hallway. It was a heartbreaking sight, yet I felt a sense of justice being served. Once they were gone, the quiet of the house felt deafening. I walked back to my easel, picking up a brush with trembling hands. Dipping it into the paint, I tried to steady myself through the familiar motion. As I worked, I reflected on the confrontation. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my life and ensuring that Mason and Amber faced the consequences of their actions. Mrs. Harper had been a wonderful support through all this, offering advice and encouragement as I balanced my work at the store and the challenges at home. When I next saw her, I shared what had happened. "Nora, you did the right thing. Sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most important changes," she said kindly. I nodded. "I hope so. For now, I just want to move forward." And so I did. Each day became a step toward healing, creating new routines in my quiet, comforting home. Though the scars remained, I knew I had emerged stronger and more self-assured than I ever thought possible. The reality of Mason and Amber's arrest didn't truly sink in until I visited the police station to finalize my statement. As I walked through the cold, sterile corridors, I felt a mixture of apprehension and resolve. This was it, the point of no return. An officer led me to an interview room. "Miss Collins, we'll need you to recount everything again for the record," he said, his tone professional yet compassionate. I took a deep breath and began, detailing the lies, the theft, the manipulations. For the first time, I laid everything bare without fear. My voice remained steady as I recounted each betrayal, each moment of pain, knowing this was a necessary step for justice. When I finished, the officer nodded. "Thank you, Miss Collins. Your courage in coming forward is commendable." As I stepped out of the station, I noticed a familiar face in the waiting area. It was Emily Harper, Mrs. Harper's daughter. She stood up and approached me. "Nora, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry you had to go through all this," she said softly. "Thank you, Emily. It's been tough, but it needed to be done," I replied. "Mom wanted me to check in on you. She's been worried," Emily added. "Tell her I appreciate it, and I'll drop by the store soon," I said, grateful for the support. That evening, I allowed myself a moment of reflection. The house was quiet, almost peaceful. I picked up my phone and called Mrs. Harper. "Nora, how are you holding up?" her warm voice asked. "I'm okay, Mrs. Harper. Mason and Amber are facing their consequences," I said, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. "You did the right thing." "You deserve peace, Nora," she reassured me. "Thank you," I whispered, grateful for her kindness. The next few days were filled with legal proceedings and meetings with lawyers. I attended court sessions, where Mason and Amber's crimes were laid bare for all to see. They tried to plead for leniency, but the evidence was overwhelming. After one particularly grueling session, Mason approached me in the hallway. His eyes were red, and he looked defeated. "Ma, please, can't you help us? We were wrong, but we don't deserve this," he begged. I met his gaze, feeling a pang of sorrow, but knowing I had to stand firm. "Mason, you made your choices. Now you have to face the consequences. There's nothing more I can do." Amber stood behind him, her defiance crumbling into desperation. "Nora, please, we're family." "Family doesn't do what you did. I can't help you anymore," I said quietly. As they were led away, I felt a sense of closure. This chapter of my life was ending, but it was paving the way for a new beginning. Returning home, I focused on my art. Each brushstroke was a step toward healing, each painting a testament to my resilience. The small gallery I'd created in my living room began to grow, each piece reflecting the journey I had undertaken. One afternoon, Mrs. Harper visited. She walked through my makeshift gallery, admiring the paintings. "These are beautiful, Nora. You've come such a long way," she said, her eyes filled with admiration. "Thank you. It's been a lifeline," I replied, feeling a swell of pride. We sat down with cups of tea, the conversation turning to the future. "What's next for you, Nora?" Mrs. Harper asked. "I think I'll keep painting, maybe even start displaying them more widely. And I want to focus on finding peace," I said, feeling hopeful. "You have a gift, Nora. Share it with the world. And remember, you're stronger than you think," she said, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. As she left, I looked around my home, filled with the artwork that had become a symbol of my journey. The past was behind me, and I was ready for whatever the future held. I had faced the darkness, and now it was time to embrace the light. Life had a new rhythm, a steadier one. The court proceedings were behind me, and both Mason and Amber were serving their sentences. There was a strange peace in the aftermath, a calm I hadn't felt in years. My little house had become my sanctuary. I spent my days painting and working part-time at the art supply store. Mrs. Harper continued to be a wonderful support, often stopping by to check on me and discuss new art supplies or techniques. One late afternoon, as I was adding the finishing touches to a vibrant landscape, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Emily Harper holding a beautifully wrapped gift. "Hi, Nora. Mom and I wanted to give you this," she said, handing me the parcel. "What's this?" I asked, curious. "Just open it," Emily urged, smiling warmly. I untied the ribbon and lifted the lid to reveal an exquisite set of oil paints and brushes. Tears welled up in my eyes. "Thank you, Emily. Please tell your mom I'm so grateful." "Will do. We're both so proud of how far you've come," she said, giving me a hug before leaving. As I set up the new paints, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Answering, I heard a familiar voice. "Nora, it's Jane from the gallery downtown." Jane Taylor ran one of the local galleries and had expressed interest in my art before. "Hi, Jane. What can I do for you? I've been following your work, and I'd love to feature your paintings in an upcoming exhibit. What do you think?" she asked, excitement clear in her voice. I'd be honored," I stammered, overwhelmed by the offer. "Great. We'll finalize details soon. Prepare to showcase your talent, Nora," she said before ending the call. Hanging up, a grin spread across my face. It felt like a new chapter was opening, one where my art would finally receive the recognition it deserved. A week later, I stood in the center of the gallery, surrounded by my paintings. Jane had done a fantastic job arranging the exhibit, giving each piece the space it needed to shine. Mrs. Harper and Emily arrived early to support me. "Nora, these are amazing!" Mrs. Harper exclaimed, looking around with admiration. "Thanks to your encouragement," I replied, feeling a swell of gratitude. Throughout the evening, people approached me, praising my work and asking about my journey. It was a surreal experience, sharing the story of how painting had become my refuge and my strength. As the night drew to a close, I found myself alone with Jane. "Your work resonates with so many people, Nora. You have a real gift," she said, sincerity in her eyes. "Thank you, Jane. It means the world to me," I replied, feeling a sense of accomplishment. Returning home, my heart felt light. The once heavy burden of my past had lifted, replaced by hope and new possibilities. The future seemed bright, promising new opportunities and continued growth. In the following weeks, my paintings gained popularity. I received commissions and invitations to display my work in other galleries. Each new project was a step toward solidifying my identity as an artist. One sunny afternoon, while relaxing in my garden, Mrs. Harper visited with exciting news. "Nora, the local art school wants you to teach a class. Interested?" "Teaching? I've never considered that," I replied, intrigued. "They think you'd be perfect. Sharing your techniques and experiences could inspire others," Mrs. Harper encouraged. The idea planted a seed of excitement. "All right, I'll give it a try. It sounds like a wonderful opportunity." As the days turned into weeks and months, my new life flourished. I balanced painting, teaching, and enjoying quiet moments in my garden. The scars of the past were still there, but they no longer defined me. They were part of my journey, a testament to my resilience. One evening, as the sun set, I reflected on everything I'd endured and accomplished. I felt gratitude for the strength I'd found and the new path I was forging. Life was a canvas, and I was painting it with vibrant, resilient strokes, each one a testament to my journey, my survival, and my new beginnings. The sound of the doorbell echoed through the house, and I hurried to answer it, eager to see my son Caleb and his wife Alyssa. As I opened the door, a broad smile spread across my face, but it quickly faded when I saw the cold, hard expression on Alyssa's face. "Martha, do you really think you can just waltz into our lives like this? You're delusional if you think you're welcome here," she spat, her voice dripping with venom. I recoiled, taken aback by the sheer hostility in her words. Disbelief and anger swelled within me. How could my own son's wife speak so disrespectfully? This wasn't the sweet, caring Alyssa I had known when they first got married. Caleb stepped forward, his brow furrowed in confusion. "Alyssa, what's going on? Why are you talking to my mother like that?" Alyssa shot him a withering glare. "Don't you see, Caleb? She's trying to worm her way back into our lives, just like she always does. We don't need her meddling." I opened my mouth to protest, but Caleb held up a hand, silencing me. "Mom, I'm sorry, but maybe it's best if you go home for now. We'll talk about this later." His voice was strained, caught between his allegiance to his wife and his love for his mother. Tears pricked my eyes as I nodded wordlessly and stepped back, closing the door on their retreating figures. As I leaned against the solid oak, my heart heavy, I couldn't help but wonder, What had happened to the gentle, loving daughter-in-law I had once known? The next few weeks were a whirlwind of tension and hostility. Whenever I tried to offer a helping hand around the house, Alyssa would rebuff me with cruel remarks or outright insults. It was as if she were determined to make me feel unwelcome in my own son's home. One evening, Alyssa hosted a family dinner, and I naively thought it might be an opportunity to mend fences. But as soon as the meal began, she launched into a tirade, accusing me of spoiling the food and making a mess in the kitchen. "Honestly, Martha, can't you do anything right?" she sneered, her eyes flashing with malice. "Maybe it's time you stopped trying to be so involved in our lives." I sat there stunned into silence as Caleb shifted uncomfortably in his seat, unable or unwilling to confront his wife's behavior. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of awkward silences and forced small talk, and by the time Frank and I left, I felt utterly defeated. As the weeks turned into months, Alyssa's hostility only grew more pronounced. She would make snide comments about my cooking, criticize my appearance, and even go so far as to insult my intelligence in front of others. All the while, Caleb remained oblivious, either too wrapped up in his work or too afraid of confronting his wife to notice the rift that was tearing our family apart. As the weeks passed, Alyssa's hostility towards me only intensified. What had once been a warm, welcoming home felt more like a battleground, with every domestic chore becoming a source of conflict. One afternoon, I offered to help Alyssa with the laundry, thinking it might be a small gesture of goodwill. But as soon as I stepped into the laundry room, she rounded on me, her eyes narrowed with contempt. "What do you think you're doing?" she snapped, snatching the basket of clothes from my hands. "I don't need your help. You'll just mess everything up like you always do." I tried to protest, to explain that I was simply trying to lend a hand, but she cut me off with a sharp wave of her hand. "Save it, Martha. I know what you're up to. You're trying to make me look bad in front of Caleb, like I can't handle the simplest of tasks. Well, it's not going to work. Just stay out of my way." With that, she turned on her heel and stormed out of the room, leaving me standing there, stunned and hurt by the venom in her words. It wasn't just the household chores that became a battleground either. Alyssa seemed determined to make every family gathering a living hell for me. At one particularly tense dinner, she went out of her way to criticize every dish I had prepared, even going so far as to accuse me of using expired ingredients. "Honestly, Martha, is it so hard to follow a simple recipe?" she sneered, pushing her plate away with a look of disgust. "No wonder Caleb and I rarely come over for dinner. Who knows what kind of food poisoning we might get?" I felt my face flush with embarrassment as the rest of the family shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Caleb, as usual, said nothing, his gaze fixed resolutely on his plate. After the meal, as I was cleaning up in the kitchen, Alyssa sauntered in, a cruel smirk playing on her lips. "You know, Martha, maybe it's time you accepted that you're just not cut out for this whole mother-in-law thing," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "You're always getting in the way, trying to insert yourself where you're not wanted. It's pathetic, really." I clenched my fists, struggling to keep my composure in the face of her cruelty. "Alyssa, I don't know what I've done to deserve this kind of treatment from you," I said, my voice trembling with barely contained emotion. "But this has to stop. You're tearing our family apart." She let out a cruel laugh, her eyes glinting with malice. "Oh, please, don't act like you're the victim here, Martha. You're the one who's always meddling, always trying to undermine me. Well, I've got news for you. It's not going to work. I'm in charge here, and you'd better start respecting that." With that, she turned and stalked out of the kitchen, leaving me feeling more alone and helpless than ever before. As the months dragged on, it became increasingly clear that Alyssa's behavior was part of a calculated scheme to isolate me from my own family. Her manipulative tactics were subtle at first, but soon they became painfully obvious. It started with her suggestions that Frank and I should move in with them to help out around the house. At first, it seemed like a kind gesture, a way for us to spend more time with our son and grandchildren. But as the weeks passed, Alyssa's true intentions became clear. "You know, Martha, it's really not fair for you and Frank to be living on your own at your age," she would say, feigning concern. "You should be closer to us so we can take care of you properly." I would politely decline, assuring her that Frank and I were perfectly capable of caring for ourselves. But Alyssa was relentless, bringing it up at every opportunity until finally I agreed just to keep the peace. Little did I know, it was all part of her plan. A few months later, Caleb came to us with a proposal. "Mom, Dad, Alyssa and I have been talking, and we think it might be a good idea for us to move into a bigger house," he said, a hopeful smile on his face. "That way you two could come and live with us, and we could all be together as one big happy family." I should have seen the warning signs then, but I was so desperate to maintain some semblance of family unity that I agreed without hesitation. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity as we began searching for the perfect house. Alyssa was adamant that we find a place with enough space for all of us, promising that we would finally be able to live in harmony under one roof. But as the moving day drew closer, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Alyssa's behavior had taken on a strange, almost manic quality, and there was a glint in her eye that made me uneasy. Still, I pushed those doubts aside, determined to make the best of the situation for the sake of my son and my grandchildren. The day we finally moved into the new house should have been a joyous occasion, but it quickly became clear that Alyssa had other plans. As we unpacked our belongings and tried to settle in, she made it abundantly clear that we were unwelcome guests in our own home. "I hope you don't think you're going to be able to just waltz in here and take over," she sneered, her eyes narrowed in contempt. "This is my house, and you'll follow my rules." I tried to reason with her, to remind her that we were all family and that we should be able to live together in peace and harmony, but Alyssa was having none of it. "Don't give me that family nonsense," she spat. "You're nothing but a burden, and I'm not going to let you ruin my life anymore." As I stood there, stunned and hurt by her cruelty, Caleb simply looked on, his expression blank and impassive. It was as if he had been completely blind to his wife's true nature all along. That night, as Frank and I unpacked the last of our belongings in the small guest room Alyssa had grudgingly allocated to us, I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread settle over me. This was supposed to be a fresh start for our family, but instead it felt like the beginning of the end. The housewarming party was supposed to be a celebration of our new life together as a family. But for Alyssa, it was merely an opportunity to drive the final nail into the coffin of our once happy relationship. As guests began to arrive, bearing gifts and well wishes, Alyssa made it a point to greet each and every one of them with a warm smile and a friendly embrace. But when it came to Frank and me, she treated us like unwanted strangers, barely acknowledging our presence. "Alyssa, shouldn't we go and greet Martha and Frank?" Caleb asked at one point, a hint of confusion in his voice. Alyssa fixed him with a withering glare. "Why bother?" she snapped. "They're not the ones hosting this party. They're just guests." The way she spat out that last word as if it left a bitter taste in her mouth sent a chill down my spine. It was clear that in her eyes Frank and I were nothing more than intruders in our own family. As the party wore on, Alyssa's behavior only grew more outrageous. She would intentionally exclude us from conversations or make snide remarks about our living situation whenever we tried to join in. "Oh, Martha, you're still here?" she would say, feigning surprise. "I thought you and Frank would have gone back to your room by now. Wouldn't want to overstay your welcome, would we?" Each time, I would feel my cheeks burn with humiliation, while Caleb simply stood by, doing nothing to defend us. But the final straw came when it was time to cut the cake. Alyssa had gone all out, ordering an elaborate, multi-tiered confection that must have cost a small fortune. As she gathered everyone around for the ceremonial slicing, she made a point of positioning Frank and me at the very back of the crowd, almost as if she were ashamed to be associated with us. "All right, everyone, gather round," she called out, her voice sickly sweet. "It's time to celebrate our new home and our new life together." She fixed me with a pointed stare as she said those last few words, her lips curled into a cruel smirk. As she began cutting into the cake, distributing slices to everyone except Frank and me, I felt a wave of anger and humiliation wash over me. This was supposed to be a time of joy and togetherness, but Alyssa had turned it into a twisted form of torture, designed to remind us of our place in her world. Finally, when the last slice had been handed out, Alyssa turned to us, feigning surprise. "Oh, Martha, Frank, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot about you two," she said, her tone dripping with false sincerity. "But I suppose it's for the best. You wouldn't want to ruin your figures with all that sugar, would you?" The laughter that rippled through the crowd was like a knife to my heart. In that moment, I realized that Alyssa had won. She had succeeded in turning our family against us, and there was nothing we could do to stop her. Tears stinging my eyes, I turned to Frank and said the words I never thought I'd have to utter. "Let's go, dear. I think it's time we left." As we made our way towards the door, I could hear Alyssa's mocking laughter ringing in my ears. But even as my heart shattered into a million pieces, a small spark of determination began to flicker within me. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Alyssa may have won the battle, but the war was just beginning. And I vowed, right then and there, that I would make her pay for every ounce of disrespect and humiliation she'd heaped upon us. In the days following the housewarming party debacle, Frank and I retreated into ourselves, nursing our wounds and trying to make sense of the cruelty we had endured. But as the shock and humiliation began to fade, a new emotion took root within me, a burning desire for revenge. It was then that I remembered a crucial detail that Alyssa had been kept in the dark about all these years, the financial support I had been secretly providing Caleb. You see, my son's job as an engineer didn't pay him nearly enough to support the lavish lifestyle Alyssa had grown accustomed to. So for years I had been funneling a portion of my retirement savings into his bank account each month, ensuring that he could keep up with her extravagant demands. And that's when the plan began to take shape. "Frank," I said one evening as we sat together in the small guest room that had become our sanctuary, "I think it's time we cut Caleb off." My husband looked at me, his brow furrowed in confusion. "Cut him off? But what about his financial situation? You know he can't afford to support Alyssa's spending habits on his own." I nodded, a grim smile spreading across my face. "Exactly. And when the money stops coming in and Alyssa starts to feel the pinch, that's when we'll make our move." Over the next few weeks, I meticulously executed my plan. I stopped the monthly transfers to Caleb's account, careful to cover my tracks and make it appear as though the funds had simply dried up. And sure enough, it didn't take long for the cracks in Alyssa's perfect little world to start showing. At first, it was just little things, complaints about having to cut back on luxury purchases or grumbling about the need to stick to a budget. But soon, those grumbles turned into full-blown tantrums, as Alyssa realized that the lavish lifestyle she had grown accustomed to was slipping through her fingers. "Caleb, what's going on?" I overheard her demand one night, her voice shrill with panic. "Why is there so little money in our accounts? We can barely afford to pay the bills this month." "I don't know, Alyssa," Caleb replied, his tone weary and defeated. "Things have just been tight at work lately. We may have to tighten our belts for a little while." But Alyssa was having none of it. She railed and raged, accusing Caleb of mismanaging their finances and threatening to leave him if he couldn't get things back on track. It was around this time that she started coming to me, her pride and ego battered, seeking handouts to sustain the lifestyle she had grown so accustomed to. "Martha, you have to help me," she pleaded, her eyes wide and desperate. "Caleb's finances are a mess, and we're barely scraping by. Surely you can spare a little money to help your daughter-in-law out?" But I remained resolute, feigning ignorance and refusing to give her a single cent. With each rejection, her desperation grew, until finally she reached her breaking point. "You miserable old hag," she screamed one day, her face twisted into a mask of rage. "I know you're behind this. You've been manipulating Caleb's finances all along, just to punish me." I simply stared back at her, my expression impassive. "I have no idea what you're talking about, Alyssa, but if you're having financial troubles, perhaps it's time you reevaluated your priorities." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving her sputtering and fuming in my wake. And as I retreated to the sanctuary of my room, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction wash over me. The wheels of my revenge were in motion, and there was no stopping them now. As the financial strain on Caleb and Alyssa's household intensified, the once pristine facade of their perfect life began to crumble. Alyssa, accustomed to a life of luxury, was unraveling at the seams, her desperation growing with each unpaid bill and overdue notice that piled up. Her panic reached a fever pitch one evening when she barged into the guest room where Frank and I were staying, her eyes wild and her hair disheveled. "You have to help me, Martha," she pleaded, her voice trembling with desperation. "I don't know what's going on, but we're running out of money, and I can't make ends meet." I regarded her coolly, unmoved by her histrionics. "I'm sorry, Alyssa, but I don't understand what you expect me to do. Caleb is a grown man, and it's his responsibility to provide for his family." She let out a frustrated growl, her fingers curling into fists at her sides. "Don't play dumb with me, you old hag. I know you've been cutting off Caleb's income behind my back. This is all you're doing." I feigned innocence, shaking my head slowly. "I assure you, Alyssa, I have no idea what you're talking about. If you and Caleb are having financial troubles, perhaps it's time to reevaluate your spending habits." Her eyes narrowed dangerously, and for a moment I thought she might lash out at me physically, but instead she took a deep breath, seeming to regain some semblance of composure. "Fine," she spat, her voice laced with venom. "If that's how you want to play it, I'll just have to find another way to get the money we need." With that, she turned on her heel and stormed out of the room, leaving Frank and me in stunned silence. Over the next few weeks, I watched with a mixture of satisfaction and pity as Alyssa's world crumbled around her. She tried every trick in the book to keep up appearances, maxing out credit cards, taking out loans, even pawning her jewelry and designer handbags. But no matter what she did, the financial noose just seemed to tighten around her neck. Caleb, bless his heart, tried to reason with her, suggesting that they downsize or cut back on unnecessary expenses. But Alyssa was having none of it, stubbornly clinging to the lavish lifestyle she had grown accustomed to. "We can't let them win, Caleb," she would screech, her eyes wild with desperation. "They're trying to break us, but we have to stay strong." "Who's trying to break us, Alyssa?" Caleb would reply, his voice weary and confused. I don't understand what's going on. But Alyssa was too far gone, consumed by her own paranoia and greed. She lashed out at everyone around her, accusing them of conspiring against her, of trying to take away everything she had worked so hard for. Finally, one evening, Caleb reached his breaking point. "Alyssa, we need to talk," he said, his voice trembling with a mixture of anger and sadness. This can't go on anymore." She turned to him, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about your spending," he replied, his voice growing stronger with each word. "Your obsession with money and material things. It's tearing our family apart, and I can't live like this anymore." Alyssa's face contorted with rage, and she let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, I see what's going on here. Your precious mommy has finally gotten to you, hasn't she? She's been poisoning your mind against me all along." But Caleb shook his head, his expression resolute. "No, Alyssa, this isn't about my mother. This is about you and the way you've been treating everyone around you. It's toxic, and it has to stop." I watched from the shadows as the argument escalated, my heart pounding with a mixture of vindication and sorrow. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The moment when Alyssa's house of cards finally came crashing down around her. And as Caleb uttered those fateful words, "I want a divorce," I couldn't help but feel a sense of twisted satisfaction. The revenge I had so carefully plotted was finally coming to fruition, and Alyssa was getting exactly what she deserved. The divorce proceedings between Caleb and Alyssa were nothing short of a spectacle, a bitter and ugly battle that laid bare the true depths of her manipulative nature. At first, Alyssa tried to play the victim, painting herself as the innocent party who had been wronged by her husband and his meddling mother. She wept crocodile tears and spun tales of emotional abuse, trying to sway the mediator to her side. "He's been brainwashed by that woman," she sobbed, gesturing dramatically towards me. "She's been poisoning his mind against me from the start, filling his head with lies and turning him against his own wife." Caleb, to his credit, remained calm and steadfast, refusing to be baited by her theatrics. "This has nothing to do with my mother, Alyssa," he said, his voice firm and unwavering. "This is about your behavior, your constant spending, your disrespect for our family, your refusal to take any responsibility for your actions." Alyssa's eyes narrowed, and she let out a derisive snort. "Oh, please, Don't act like you're some kind of saint, Caleb. We both know you've been struggling to keep up with my spending habits for years. That's why you've been taking handouts from your mommy dearest, isn't it? A hush fell over the room, and I could see Caleb's jaw tighten as he processed her words. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, he turned to look at me, a mixture of confusion and hurt swirling in his eyes. Mom? Is that true? For a moment I considered playing dumb, feigning ignorance as I had done so many times before, but something in Caleb's gaze stopped me, a silent plea for honesty, for the truth that had been kept from him for so long. So, with a heavy heart, I nodded. Yes, Caleb, it's true. For years, I've been supplementing your income to help Alyssa maintain her lavish lifestyle, but I stopped a few months ago, and that's when everything started to unravel. Alyssa let out a triumphant cackle, her eyes dancing with vindication. See? I told you she was behind this whole thing. She's been manipulating us from the start, trying to turn you against me. But Caleb shook his head, his expression one of weary resignation. No, Alyssa, you're wrong. My mother may have made some questionable decisions, but she wasn't the one who brought us to this point. That was all you. Alyssa's mouth dropped open, her perfectly manicured hands clenching into fists at her sides. How dare you talk to me like that? After everything I've done for you, for our family. Everything you've done? Caleb echoed, his voice laced with disbelief. Alyssa, all you've done is spend money we didn't have, disrespect my family, and make our lives a living hell with your constant demands and tantrums. He took a deep breath, his shoulders squaring as he steeled himself for what he was about to say. That's why I'm done. I'm done with the lies, the manipulation, the constant drama. I want a divorce, and I want you out of our lives for good. The room fell silent, the weight of Caleb's words hanging heavy in the air. Alyssa's face contorted with rage, her carefully constructed facade crumbling before our very eyes. You'll regret this, Caleb, she hissed, her voice trembling with barely contained fury. You and that miserable old hag will both be sorry you ever crossed me. But as she stormed out of the room, her threats ringing hollow in our ears, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief wash over me. The battle had been won, and Alyssa's reign of terror was finally at an end. In the weeks and months that followed, the divorce proceedings dragged on, with Alyssa fighting tooth and nail for every last penny she could squeeze out of Caleb. But in the end, her manipulations and lies caught up with her, and she was left with nothing. No money, no possessions, no family to fall back on. As for Caleb and me, our relationship slowly began to mend, the wounds of her betrayal gradually healing with time and open communication. It wasn't always easy, and there were moments when I feared the rift between us might never be bridged. But in the end, the bond between a mother and her son proved stronger than any obstacle Alyssa could throw our way. And as we rebuilt our lives, free from her toxic influence, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude, not just for the justice that had been served, but for the chance to start anew, to build something better and more lasting than anything Alyssa had ever tried to destroy. In the aftermath of Caleb's divorce from Alyssa, a strange sense of calm settled over our lives. It was as if a dark cloud had finally lifted, allowing the warmth of a new beginning to shine through. For Caleb, the transition was not an easy one. He had spent years under Alyssa's toxic influence, and the scars of her manipulation ran deep. But with time and support from Frank and me, he slowly began to rediscover the person he had been before her, kind, hardworking, and devoted to his family. I'll never forget the day he came to me, his eyes filled with a mix of shame and resolve, and uttered the words I had been longing to hear. "Mom, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I should have seen what Alyssa was doing sooner. I should have stood up for you and Dad, instead of letting her treat you both so terribly." I reached out and took his hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "Caleb, you have nothing to apologize for. We're just grateful that you were able to break free from her hold before it was too late." He nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "That's all thanks to you, Mom. If you hadn't been so determined, so unwavering in your love for us, who knows where we'd be right now?" In that moment, I felt a swell of pride and gratitude that went beyond words. To know that my actions, as difficult and painful as they had been, had ultimately saved my son from a life of misery and turmoil, It was the greatest reward I could have ever hoped for. As the weeks turned into months, Caleb threw himself into his work, finding solace in the familiar routines and challenges of his engineering career. Gone were the days of lavish spending and empty materialism. Instead, he embraced a simpler, more grounded existence, one that allowed him to rediscover the joy in the little things. And through it all, Frank and I were there, offering our unwavering support and guidance as he navigated this new chapter of his life. We shared meals together, went on family outings, and simply enjoyed the simple pleasure of being reunited as a family once more. Of course, there were moments when the ghosts of Alyssa's cruelty would rear their ugly heads. Sometimes Caleb would grow distant or withdrawn, lost in the memories of the pain she had inflicted upon us all. And on those days, Frank and I would simply hold space for him, offering a listening ear and a shoulder to lean on whenever he needed it. As for me, I found myself grappling with a strange mix of emotions. Relief, of course, at having finally put an end to Alyssa's reign of terror, but also a lingering sense of guilt over the lengths I had gone to in order to achieve that victory. Had I gone too far? Had I allowed my own thirst for revenge to cloud my judgment, to lead me down a path that, while effective, was perhaps not entirely ethical? These were the questions that kept me up at night, weighing heavily on my conscience even as I tried to move forward and embrace the newfound peace that had been restored to our lives. But in the end, whenever I looked at Caleb, at the joy and contentment that had returned to his eyes, at the way he carried himself with a renewed sense of purpose and self-worth, I knew that I had made the right choice. Alyssa's cruelty had nearly torn our family apart, and I had simply done what was necessary to protect those I loved most. Was it messy? Absolutely. Was it always pretty or morally pristine? Certainly not. But at the end of the day, I had reclaimed my son from the clutches of a toxic, manipulative woman, and that was a victory worth any price. So as Frank and I settled into our new normal, basking in the warmth of our reunited family, I couldn't help but feel a sense of quiet satisfaction. The road had been long and arduous, but we had emerged on the other side, scarred perhaps, but stronger and more resilient than ever before. And that, I realized, was the greatest revenge of all.